See myself in the floating home. See the light come over now. See myself in the floating rain. I watch hope come over me. Here we are in the pouring home. I watch the light man for the cone. I watch the light move across the screen. I watch the light come over me. Here we are now going to the east side. I pick up my friends and we start to ride. Ride all night, yeah, we ride all day. The sun may come and go, the sun may stay. Here we are now going to the west side. Weapons in hand, maybe we go for a ride. The sun may come and go, the sun may stay. Watching out for the sunny day when there's love and darkness and my side. come go, but some may stay. Here we are now, going to the side. Weapons in hand, maybe go for a ride. Some may come go, but some may stay. Watching out for a sunny day when it's love and darkness and my side.
We did it, guys. We did it. After painstaking, laborious journey, lots of ups and downs. What was it? Live streaming for like a fucking year and a half, months of hiatus, 20-minute episodes. We scratched and clawed our way to the middle. Episode 100 of Box Office Addict. Jesus, 50 feels like so long ago. And what are the fucking chances that it would be Sonic the Hedgehog? Gotta go fast. Sonic the Hedgehog is the 100th Box Office Addict. There's something kind of perfect about it, you know? The song's the hybrid remix of Moby's song Southside. Which is from his very famous album Play from the 90s. It's just so funny to me that it's Sonic the Hedgehog is the 100th episode. You know, I'm actually a big Sonic the Hedgehog fan. I've loved Sonic since I was a kid. Like, I was really, really big into the, Why didn't the Sonic movie do cross-promotion with the Sonic restaurant? I was thinking the same thing. I know. Why have they never had the mascot be Sonic the Hedgehog? You think that Sega would have jumped in on that shit. But I love the Sonic games. I know that Rich Evans and that bald guy in Red Letter Media doesn't like Sonic, but I love Sonic 1 through 3. And then, of course, I've been disappointed with the Sonic games for like 30 years. Sonic Adventure 2 doesn't hold up. But yeah, Sonic the Hedgehog, #1 movie of the week, overperformed, I would say. And it's one of those big course corrections things. People hated the first design because it was one of those things where they wrongly thought, as they usually do with Hollywood movies, to make it look more realistic as possible, instead of keeping the cartoony nature of things. We see this with the Transformers movies. We've seen this with superhero movies for years, like the X-Men films did this for a long time. And then now we live in a world where it's obvious that people want things to look closer to the original version of things. We want our characters to be wearing their outfits from the comic books. So, of course, they come out with the trailer for Sonic, and it's a big fucking disaster. He looks awful. He looks creepy, uncanny valley. The movie looks like shit. Yeah, I saw Mike's Oscar rant. Of course I did. It was beautiful. I love how they just kept focusing on the Joaquin Phoenix speech being fucking crazy about the milk. We take the milk and all that. I remember just watching that and being like, what the fuck is going on? I know Joaquin Phoenix was trying to be like profound. I did a review on The Disaster Order, so if you want my opinion on the movie, there's a review where I go into detail about it. So I love the book. Very disappointed in the movie. I don't think James Franco did a very good job directing the movie. I think it could have been a brilliant movie, though. But it's one of my favorite books. In particular, one of my favorite audiobooks of all time. Greg Sestero reading it and doing a Tommy Wiseau impression. And then there was this big, huge outcry. And in a crazy move by, what was it, Universal? Paramount. They changed the design. They went in and changed the design because of the fans raging about it. With John Ralphio voicing Sonic, Jim Carrey playing Dr. Robotnik, Eggman, and I didn't even think about that. There's a video of Jim Carrey singing I'm the Walrus where he's saying, I am the Eggman. He has officially become the Eggman. I mean, it was refreshing, but it still was crazy. Like, I didn't hate Joaquin Phoenix's speech, but I think he thought it was I mean, Mike made such a great point where Joaquin's like, sit down, don't worship me. This isn't about me. This isn't some grandeur thing. And then he goes on to talk for 5 minutes about how he knows more than everyone else. Yeah, because they sound stupid. But then the thing with Sonic is they changed the design, which is part of this toxic fan culture. I guess we'll talk about this a little bit because, of course, media outlets are using this as a way to, from Sonic the Hedgehog to Star Wars, are fans too entitled? The redesign of the new big screen Sonic in a response to fan backlash shows how people power is now shaping pop. Shows how people power. What the fuck? People power is now shaping pop culture. But what does that mean for creativity? Asked Stephen Kelly. So basically, he goes into this whole thing about like how people used to be upset that Arthur Conan Doyle killed off Sherlock Holmes. So he brought him back 10 years later. Yeah, Arthur Conan Doyle was so intense that he eventually resurrected him 10 years later. So this is to summarize the article, and it's what we've been hearing a long time. Basically, it's a bunch of racist troll fans, and they bring up The Last Jedi in particular. I don't know why they bring up Game of Thrones. The enormous success of Game of Thrones helped introduce geek culture. I don't know where they got that from to the mainstream. I think that was already prominent before Game of Thrones. I think geek culture had already been taking over well into the 2000s. They're just saying it because for some reason they know what 85%. What if people are just mixed on the movie? What if they didn't love it or hate it? Are they seriously trying to say that the majority of people love the movie? How the fuck can you even quantify that? The Last Jedi Furor, however, was a bit more complicated. Directed by Rian Johnson, the second in the latest Star Wars trilogy was a film that aspired to show that stylistically bold and thematically challenging filmmaking was still possible within the constraints of the franchise system. None of this is true. It was not stylistically bold and thematically challenging. Many critics and fans adored it, but a vocal minority, aghast at its rejection of nostalgia, of inherited power, of the idea that an older Luke Skywalker would not be more complex than a leveled-up video game character, despised it so much that they clogged the internet for months with vitriol and abuse. Kelly Marie Tran, whose character Rose they especially dislike, evened up leaving social media altogether to sustained harassment. Oh no, boo-hoo-hoo. And so, in a craven, the worst impulses of modern fandom... I love this. J.J. Abrams followed Johnson's film with Rise of the Skywalker, a desperate and creatively bankrupt barrage of fan service. This is exactly what they're going to do. They're going to talk about Rise of the Skywalker being terrible, not because they did a poor job of setting up that movie with the previous two films, but because fans made it so bad. They're going to shit on this film, and that this vocal minority destroyed the film. Like, how condescending is this goddamn paragraph? And just ignoring all of the valid criticisms, just saying that people didn't like that, they didn't get what they wanted. I still heard this interviews of Rise of the Skywalker from people that liked Last Jedi were saying this. Like, I'm so particular one of them comes to me as oneofus.net, which features people that used to work on spell.com, and they're like, I'm so sick of the Star Wars fandom. And one guy in particular said, and by the way, oneofus.net has been a horrible fucking failure. It's a spinoff, the character Cyrus from Spell.com. While Corey and Martin have went on to do Double Toasted, which has become very successful, Cyrus got the brilliant idea to go start a fucking website instead of a YouTube channel, like a moron who's stuck in the 90s. And it's been a complete failure, by the way. There's no traffic on that website. I was also blocked on that website for disagreeing with them about Ghostbusters 2016, which they gave a positive review, and they attacked James Rolfe on. But they all sit around there, and one of them had the gall to say that, after I see this, I think J.J. Abrams disliked The Last Jedi, or he didn't understand it, and I'm inclined to believe that he didn't understand it. Like, there was some kind of complexity that was hard to understand about that fucking movie. But then they bring it up again here with Ghostbusters, which TV and film industry's push for diversity and inclusion has been met with vicious campaigns of racism and misogyny. Once again, this whole thing, like, they just missed the whole point about the Ghostbusters thing. They made it political. They made it sexist, they made it racist, and people responded to it because as soon as it came out, it looked like shit, and everybody was like, this looks terrible. Red Letter Media even did the Science Guy video on it, where they actually looked at the comments on the video. And then everyone's like, no, it's just racists who don't want to see this terrible looking movie. And then it bombed, and they didn't want to blame the movie. I mean, I cannot believe people are still making these arguments. Like, Ghostbusters 2016, Jesus Christ, that was 4 years ago. And I like this. Racism and misogyny in fandom isn't a new phenomenon. It's just being felt more acutely in recent decades, in part because of the ease in which these attacks can be orchestrated on social media platforms. Now, there's one really good point brought up by someone who's defensive and more positive by one of the people in this article, that they point out that it's not that fans or geek culture is racist and sexist. It's that we live in a politically divisive culture right now where there's conservative values and more liberal values being fought. And the people who politically align with one thing or the other, they're just speaking about everything. Everything's politicized and hypersensitive right now. Everything. So, of course, it affects video games and movies and music and all forms of art, just like it affects interactions in the workplace. It's affecting everything right now. So it's not a reflection of fandom. Okay, it's a reflection of where we are right now as a society, and it just falls in with it. But I don't know how this connects to Sonic, because the whole argument here seems to be that the filmmakers didn't creatively get to do what they wanted to with an artistic expression by doing their depiction of Sonic the way they did. Why the fuck would you pick Sonic the Hedgehog as the film to make that argument with? Like, oh my god, they killed the artistic integrity of this movie by complaining that Sonic looked horrible and that he should look more like his counterpart from the video game. Filmmakers can do whatever the fuck they want. I'm not acting like you can't. But if you're telling me that this director, who is a nobody director, and Paramount making a Sonic movie, had some kind of artistic, wonderful vision about making Sonic look like a more realistic version of a hedgehog than the cartoony version in the Sonic games, I think you're missing the whole goddamn point. It's an adaptation of those games, so people want it to look like the thing that it's based off of. People want it to exist in that world that it's based off of. I'm pissed off that they did the bullshit where they're putting Sonic in the real world with a road trip movie with James Marsden. Why can't it just be based in the Emerald world that it takes place in? All that shit looks awesome. But no, they have to take it out of that and say, hey, let's set it in the real world. It's a fucking Sonic movie. This isn't some original thing this filmmaker came up with. This didn't ruin anything at all. In fact, by changing the design, all that happened was that the box office numbers increased, the reviews are more positive now, and the film is a hit and getting positive reception. And that is directly in correlation with them changing the design. So fans in this case actually helped the filmmakers and the producers get a better product out there and thus get better results, which makes a really good fucking argument that if you stick closer to the thing, i.e. Bumblebee, you will get a more positive reception to the product. What is this fucking argument? Oh no, they ruined this director's wonderful vision that he had for Sonic. No, it was just everybody trying to follow that let's keep it more realistic trend. That's all it was. Yeah, I'm sorry, fuck Cyrus. And I used to love Cyrus. Him and Martin originally started Double Toasted, and One of Us Does Not, and Cyrus and Martin left. Fucking genius to go work with Corey. Although I still think Corey talks too much. And then Carlisle's working in Hollywood now as a screenwriter, and he's a novelist. So yeah, oneofus.net is what happens when you create an echo chamber website. They block people on that website who don't agree with them politically. It's just a bunch of Austin liberals sitting around in a circle talking about every movie, agreeing with each other. And their comment section is dead. I don't know how he keeps the website running. And I even wrote on one of their YouTube comments on their YouTube videos, which don't even get 1,000 views. I was like, hey man, you blocked me on your stupid fucking website, and you don't know anything about the internet. You're basically an outdated idiot who thinks you can still start a movie website like it's the 90s or early 2000s and not use one of the major media platforms. Where Corey was smart enough to know that, oh, I can just build my brand, continue this build brand on YouTube. But I'm only bringing them up because I remember their Rise of the Skywalker review, and it was basically a group of guys sitting around that were butthurt that they had to defend The Last Jedi over the last 2 years. And then this movie came out, and they're like, well, you know what? This movie's shit, and it's because of people who didn't like The Last Jedi, which was shit. Instead of just agreeing that the whole trilogy was a mess. It's like, you're the ones that are being divisive, and you're the ones that are being political because you agree with the political and the subtext, the commentary, what Rian Johnson is saying in The Last Jedi. It agrees with your political views, so that's why you're positive towards it. You're the one that has a political bias. It's not the so-called conservative racist. Did Steven Crowder hating on Parasite but not even seeing the movie and wanting Cats to win? I mean, that's the problem, the opposite end too. That conservative YouTubers are the problem. Steven Crowder's a hack. He could be funny. Because Parasite was the best movie of 2019. It's the first time I could think in forever where the actual best film of the year won Best Picture. I don't know when the last time that ever happened. I can't think of an example. So of course he's going to be like Parasite, evil, progressive. I'm sure Ben Shapiro hated it too. Motherfuckers. I was embarrassed Cyrus was on DT giving Beauty and the Beast high praise. I mean, I don't want to shit on Cyrus like Chris. I like him, but his whole website's fucking ridiculous. It's just I remember when I got blocked on that website, and I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" Just because I didn't agree with them on the Ghostbusters movie, and because mainly they were shitting on James Rolfe and his video, and I was saying, "No, that's not what he was saying. He just said he didn't want to go see the movie because he was upset about the death of Harold Ramis, and you guys are calling him a sexist," and they blocked me for that. And ever since then, I've had a bad taste in my mouth about that whole website. But I'm glad that it's failing. Fuck it. I hope it sinks. Sinks like the goddamn Titanic. Thanks for bringing up Bumblebee. Here's another Batman Begins from Batman and Robin making the source material close friends. Exactly. What about Batman? It wasn't that Christopher Nolan's Batman movies were more realistic, it's that it was the first time somebody actually got a lot of the major elements right, that Gordon was a major character, that Alfred was a major character and more involved with the storyline, that it did feel more like Batman Year One, that he did build these gadgets and use some detective skills. It wasn't that it was grounded, it was that it was closer to the character than any Batman movie before it. And that's the same thing with this. They made it closer to what people wanted a Sonic movie to look like, and now it's a big fucking hit. There's nothing negative about this. I don't know why they're trying to say fans are entitled. You should be entitled as a fan. That's part of being a fan of anything. Should I be entitled when I want my food to be good at a restaurant that I pay for and it comes out and tastes like dog shit? When I pay a lot of money for it? No, I want the food to fucking taste good because I paid for it. I'm not entitled. I want the product to be something good when I'm paying for it. They just want me to give my money to filmmakers for shitty movies where they don't seem to care about the source material? What the fuck is this whole thing about? Like, even with Star Wars, even if you like or dislike The Last Jedi, why do you always make it about fandom? Rian Johnson made a movie that was directly commenting on fans, so that was going to be a response, but like, just because everyone dislikes the movie doesn't mean that Star Wars fans are evil. It just means some people like the movie and some people don't like the movie. That's true for every Star Wars movie. There's people who don't like the original trilogy. That doesn't mean that there's this horrible culture out there of people that don't like it. Like, quit trying to attack geek culture and the Comic-Con crowd and fans. It's this whole fucking disparaging down the rabbit hole bullshit that's not going to lead anywhere good. Because you're going to lose this battle. No, he's talking about that decade that just ended. Like, Parasite was part of the end of the decade, 2019, not this decade. That's why he's saying best film of the decade. Wait, I'm confused. So Parasite... Oh, okay, I get now. Handmaiden's the best... I don't think Parasite's the best movie of the decade either. I think it's one of the best movies of the decade, though. For sure. Really holds up. No, this is a live stream. I told you guys for episode 100 I would do a live stream. Finally, I fixed that goddamn smoke alarm. I had to stand on a fucking stool to reach the goddamn thing. I haven't finished The Mandalorian, so I can't comment on the quality as of right now. I don't think Snowpiercer was better than Parasite. I think Snowpiercer has way more flaws in its screenplay than Parasite. And I love Snowpiercer. I think Snowpiercer is great, but I think that movie is, like, honestly one of his most flawed films. especially from a writing standpoint. Not from really a filmmaking standpoint, but Snowpiercer has major issues. In fact, I think Okja too had a lot of problems. I think they both did. I thought Parasite was a real comeback for him, actually. I love Harmony Korine. I love him on David Letterman, his interviews. I love Kids. And I'm finding out a lot now living here that a lot of people like the movie Kids. In fact, we keep making jokes like, don't worry, it's Casper. Well, all of his movies are thematically about the same fucking thing. All of his movies are about class and the have and have-nots and all. That's what the fuck The Host is about. Memory is a Murder has those elements in there. Mother has those elements of it. That's like in all of his movies. He's been doing this. I mean, duh. I mean, that's Bong Joon-ho. That's what he does. Like, he does that in every one of his movies. Well, Snowpiercer is more of a dystopian 1984 universe with the classism, where Parasite is more of the current day where we're living at in the political climate classism. So they're dealing with similar things thematically, but they're different in their execution of those things. Yeah, The Hunt is great. I agree with you guys. I really like The Hunt. And I agree, Gone Girl was one of the best films of the decade. Yes, I've seen Doctor Sleep. I like Shame with Michael Fassbender. I like that he can't feel enough after a point that he's gonna go suck a cock just to feel something. That's like a horror movie for men. It's like, oh my god, what if I ever got to this point? Like, holy shit. It hasn't been going that long. The stream just started. I mean, if I had to go with best movies I saw over the last decade, it would be like Her by Spike Jonze. The Social Network is one of the best movies of the last decade. Yeah, Parasite, The Hunt. I'm trying to think. It would, because the decade would start in 2010. I'd have to refresh my memory on a few of the things. Whiplash was pretty good. Yeah, The Handmaiden was really good. Terrific movie. Those are the ones that come to mind when I think about it right away. Dunkirk's definitely one of the best movies of the last 10 years. In fact, there's a great podcast, The Rewatchables, with Bill Simmons that Tarantino was on, where he picks Dunkirk as one of the best movies of the decade, and they talk about it for an hour and a half, which I highly recommend. Tarantino talking about Chris Nolan is very interesting. For me, The Lighthouse is not one of the best movies of the decade, but it's cool if you feel that way. Yeah, I like Fury Road and Blade Runner 2049. If I was actually going Denis Villeneuve, though, I would, I actually think I prefer Sicario and Prisoners and that to Blade Runner. I have a lot of issues with the second half of Blade Runner 2049. I love the first half. But once Deckard comes back in, I think the movie really takes a big drop. I think Sicario's terrific, though. Yeah, we did cover the best of the decade in that stream. I'll do a best of the decade live stream at some point. Yeah, I like Prisoners and Sicario a lot. I don't like the ending of Prisoners. I think they fucked up, but I like the movie itself. We always end up talking about the same movies. Yeah, Drive would be one of my favorite movies of the decade, for sure. That's okay that you've only seen Blade Runner 2049. I mean, if I was being real, I would say that David Lynch Twin Peaks The Return, if you want to count that as a movie or a long whatever it was, because I don't even think it was a show, that was probably the best thing I saw in the last decade, was Twin Peaks The Return. Artistically, from an ambitious storytelling, what that confirmed for me as a David Lynch fan. That was the best thing I'd probably seen over the last 10 years. All around. Yeah, Beasts of No Nation, absolutely terrific. Love that movie. Love Cary Fukunaga's work. I couldn't even list the top 5 film of the years. TV took the cake this year. Yeah, if I was just going on, oh yeah, Nightcrawlers are great. Yeah, Good Time, 3 Billboards, all of those are great. Yeah, I agree. 12 Years a Slave. Those are all terrific choices. Rango. God, it's weird to think this decade. I was in my early 20s when this decade started. So crazy to me. Yeah, Your Name was probably the best anime of the decade movie, yeah. Because Miyazaki didn't make a great film this decade. But Your Name was great, so. Granted, I haven't seen everything, so I didn't even think about Good Time. Yeah, Good Time would definitely be up there, and Nightcrawler. Those are both amazing movies. And I think The Hateful Eight, I think, would probably have a place for me as far as Tarantino goes. Fuck, I'm trying to think. There's a couple movies that are really burning in my head that I'm forgetting about that I was like, oh man, I loved that movie. Yeah, Good Time's awesome. Chili Dogs. Well, Miyazaki's making a film right now. Isn't he? Yeah, he's directing another movie. Well, Good Time's definitely one of the best of the decade for me. That would be in my like top 10 easily, especially rewatchable. Yamaketo Shinkai. But I think Once Upon a Time in Hollywood's slightly better than Hateful Eight, but I will say I think Hateful Eight is much better than Django and Inglourious Bastards as the years have gone on. I think that Inglourious Bastards and Django with the years have like a lot of issues structurally and from a writing. It's too much movie and there's no fun. Especially Inglourious Bastards is a fucking mess, an entertaining one, where Hateful Eight and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood are much more focused movies. But I think Hateful Eight goes back to like Reservoir Dogs. I think it. I don't think necessarily it needed to be 3 hours. I don't think it's a boring 3 hours either, though. But I think that was one he probably should have kept to 2 hours. It could be a disappointment, but you know, we just shouldn't overhype ourselves for the next Miyazaki film. Because I did that with The Wind Rises and disappointed myself. So you know, it's best to just take it for what it is. Like if he makes a good movie, he makes a good movie. You know, like I've come to really love Ponyo. Like I think Ponyo's like amazing now. So I saw that Netflix has Hateful Eight as a miniseries and a movie. Yeah, they did that. I think he's talking about doing that with Once Upon a Time as well, which I would be into. I actually think Inglourious Bastards would work much better as a 6-part miniseries, because as a movie, it's too sloppy. Where I think if it, you know, every episode was one of those storylines, it would just be amazing. I think Tarantino's getting to a point where he's having a hard time making a movie narratively work. He's getting way too much in his novel. He's just turning into a guy who should be making miniseries. Yeah, I think Wolf of Wall Street's one of the best of the decade, especially rewatchable. I've watched Wolf of Wall Street like 20 times. I've watched Inception like 20 times. I've watched The Social Network like 25 times. I watched Scott Pilgrim like 20 times. Those are the movies I think about a lot, the ones that I watched a lot. I watched Her over and over again. I watched Her like 6 times in a week. I watched it like every day for a week. But Wolf of Wall Street, yeah, I loved it when I first saw it, but I'm thinking about it. I've watched that movie with so many people so many times that it's held up. So I guess that does have to be one of the best of the day for that reason alone. I don't like Moonlight. To answer that question, I think Moonlight's actually a pretty bad movie, and I think Barry Jenkins is a pretty bad filmmaker, actually. Okay, let's get into the box office a little bit. We'll talk about Jojo Rabbit here. Jojo Rabbit is at 82 million worldwide. Jojo Rabbit's just turning into a hit now. I may have spoke too soon about this movie. Domestically, it's still just doing okay. But with the $15 million budget and $82 million worldwide, and Taika Waititi won the Oscar, maybe this can reach $100 million. Although I don't think it needs to. Rise of the Skywalker continues to be a major disappointment. 1.3 million this weekend, 513 mil domestic, $1,069 million worldwide. So it made about the same as the Joker did, except it made more domestically. But this is, well, I mean, it's crazy, the drop. I mean, this is really insane when you really think about that. Force Awakens made $2 billion. And Last Jedi made 1.3, and Rogue One made this money, and that this film has dropped an entire $1 billion from the first movie in the reboot franchise. I mean, that is fucking insane. I mean, if I was J.J. Abrams, I'd be so embarrassed right now. Little Women continues to be a big hit for Greta Gerwig. 105 million domestic, 191 million worldwide on a $40 million budget. That should pass $200 million worldwide. Knives Out continues to be a big hit, which reinforces the articles about Rian Johnson and his genius. $40 million budget, 304 million worldwide, 162 mil domestic, which is huge. And this is turning into a franchise. The Gentleman from Guy Ritchie, 67 million worldwide. Don't know what the budget of this is, but doing pretty well. Downhill, 4.6 million. Is it 5 mil domestic? Is this like a documentary comedy drama? Barely escaping an avalanche during a family ski vacation in the Alps, a married couple is thrown into disarray as they are forced to reevaluate their lives and how they feel about each other. Oh, is it that movie with Will Ferrell? That's right. Wow, released in 2,300 theaters and only made $4 million. What were they thinking? Doolittle, 4.8 million, is at 71 mil domestic, 183 million worldwide. It's really unfortunate Robert Downey Jr. has such a big bomb coming off the Marvel movies that his first movie to come out doesn't make $100 million and had a budget this big. I feel really bad about this. I mean, it's not like he's going to lose any money. But why didn't you just make a Dr. Dolittle movie set in the modern day with him talking to animals? Why did you do this big $200 million adventure movie? I don't know what they were thinking. I don't know why they didn't just do like a $50 million Dr. Dolittle movie like they did with Eddie Murphy. That would have done well. What a stupid decision by Universal. That's one of those things where you go for too big. Instead of making the movie that would have made $300 million and been a hit, you try to make a movie that needs to make $700 million and be a hit, and then it bombs. This is a big problem with studios right now. They want that $1 billion movie, and then they forget that you can actually make a movie that can be a hit without doing that. Like Bad Boys 3, that movie's not going to make $800 million, but it doesn't need to. Jumanji 2 continues to do really well, or Jumanji 3. I guess, at $779 million worldwide. I would say this film did as well as they could have hoped for. I don't think it was ever going to pass the first movie, so the fact it made 300 mil domestic. Parasite got a huge boost from the Oscar win. I've never seen anything like this before. A foreign film comes out and does really well domestically, just off word of mouth. Then it wins the Oscars, and then it gets a wider release. Now it's in 2,000 theaters. Parasite's been out for months. I told people about this movie back in like October, November. I was talking to people about this movie, and now here it is, and it's had its best weekend in America with $5.6 million after it got this wider release, coming off those Oscar wins. This movie jumps up to 43 mil domestic. I think it's at 44 mil domestic. Then internationally shoots up to 145. There wasn't that long ago Parasite was at $120 million worldwide. And it seemed like its final total was going to be 130. Now we're living in a reality where Parasite's going to make $200 million worldwide. And this is just off word of mouth. This is just people telling other people to go see this movie. The reviews, it's just a good movie. And this doesn't happen very often. And for a foreign film to be making this kind of money in the States that isn't Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, this is insane. This film's going to make $50 million domestically. So this film has made an extra like $60-70 million. Huge credit goes to the distributor here, Neon, who didn't have a lot of money to push the Oscar campaign and still got the Oscars, who have been able to take this film and get it to these kind of numbers domestically. And for this movie to make this kind of money on a budget of I think the budget for this movie was like $12 million. Now, I'm sure they spent a lot on marketing and for an Oscar campaign, but let's say they have $30 million in this movie. For it to be performing this well domestically, I'm under the belief that if this had been an English language film and been a like I said before, this film would have made like 150 to 200 million dollars domestic. This would have been like Get Out. But it's still a huge hit despite that. Now they're doing an HBO miniseries adaptation with Adam fucking McKay of all people, and Bong Joon-ho's working on it. Like, what? Why? I'm not even against doing like an American remake of Parasite. It's just like Adam McKay. But yeah, this film is just, it's one of those things that the winning the Oscars, I mean, this couldn't have went better for them. They win the Palme d'Or, they get the good box office initially, the reviews are stellar, they get the nominations in the major categories, but it's like, oh, is this going to be another Roma where it doesn't win Best Picture? Then it wins Best Picture, Director, Screenplay, all that, and now it's just a huge hit. I mean, this puts Bong Joon-ho into the mainstream as a filmmaker. Like, if he came out with Snowpiercer after this, I think it would have made a lot more money than it did initially. I think his next film, you know, it's going to be a big deal because people know who he is now. And it's like The Secret of South Korea. God damn it, Kiki. She's getting in this McDonald's bag. She likes to hide bags. But it's like The Secret that we all knew for the last 20 years, that South Korea makes the best movies. It's like everyone's just in on it now. Oh my god, this fucking cat. But yeah, it's like everybody knows now. So it's awesome. Hopefully this is Chan-wook Park and some other directors from South Korea can come over to the United States now. And I don't mean like make American movies. I mean that their movies from South Korea can get more traction. I hope this is a sign because, like, you know, Old Boy became a really popular movie over the years. And that's what was really emotional about Bong Joon-ho's speech, is when he said to Quentin Tarantino, like, you know, when a lot of people ignored my movies, you always put us on your list. And he's like, Tarantino, I love you. Which was beautiful because that was true. Tarantino always pushed South Korea cinema. And in fact, when he's on that Rewatchables podcast and they're doing King of New York, he talks about when he saw King of New York and it was like he felt like Salieri. And he was like, fuck, I have to defend this movie. And he talks about when he saw Old Boy at Cannes. And he's like, fuck, man. How did he make that movie? 1917 continues to be a huge hit and got a good boost from the Oscars. Only a 12% drop, which is wonderful. $8 million. Didn't win Best Picture, Best Director, even though Sam Mendes was the front runner. But $90 million budget. Films at 145 mil domestic should be able to reach 160, and is at 325 million worldwide, which is where I think it needed to reach to get past the break even into the high profit region, which I think would be more like 250. So they're in profit right now. They're going to continue to make profit, and this film should make over $350 million worldwide. So this is a huge win for Sam Mendes, for Universal. Even though they didn't win any of the major categories, they still won 3 Oscars. It's a big hit. I think it's riding a lot of the momentum from Dunkirk, which was an even bigger hit. But yeah, that's awesome. It's really cool that Parasite and 1917 are doing so well. I've noticed that people don't like subtitles. When I told a lot of people to go see Parasite, they said, "Oh, I gotta read subtitles," and they were like, But to be fair, if Americans hated subtitles, then no foreign film would ever get as popular as they do over here. So clearly Americans don't all hate subtitles, because then a lot of these movies that have become huge hits or become iconic would not be iconic unless Americans were watching them. I mean, that's what it is. Like, Old Boy would not be as famous as it is if everybody in different countries didn't want to watch it in subtitles, including in America. Or Fellini, or Kurosawa, or a lot of these filmmakers. So clearly, a lot of Americans don't have a problem with subtitles. I don't think it's just an American thing. I think that's an issue all over the world. I don't know if any country likes to read subtitles. Do Koreans like to read subtitles? Do the French like to read? Do we have any proof that other countries like to read subtitles? We just think about it in an American context. But if you lived in another country and you had to watch a movie in a language you didn't understand, you would have to have subtitles. So I mean, like if you're Italian and you're watching Parasite, you'd be watching it with subtitles, wouldn't you? So I don't know. Is it just Americans? I don't know if anyone likes people always bring it up with anime, but the Japanese don't read subtitles because they watch anime in Japanese. So do they watch everything in subtitles? I don't know. Yeah, they dub movies in a lot of other countries. Yeah, that's true, like in Germany. Why would Japanese read subtitles though? For what? Like American stuff? I mean, I can get. Here's the problem with the subtitle argument is that people don't want to hear that there is validity to having an issue with it. Subtitles do suck. The only reason that subtitles are cool is because you're able to watch things in their native language and get the context of them. But would I prefer to just understand Korean or Japanese and watch the thing without subtitles so I'm not looking at the bottom of the screen to read the thing and not focusing on the movie? Of course I would. Anybody would. So that's what I don't get when people are like, oh, what's the problem with subtitles? It's like, they suck. It's a different experience from watching a movie without subtitles. Now, I don't care. I've seen as many foreign films as I have American films, so subtitles don't bother me. But, I mean, it does take effort. It is a different experience to watching something when you have to read text than just watching it and listening to it. It's a different thing. And yeah, I'd say most anime fans in America, at least hardcore fans, watch subtitles and don't watch dubs anymore. Maybe back in the 90s, but yeah, subtitles aren't great. In fact, I've often made the argument that subtitles make people think that foreign films or foreign that aren't non-English is more intelligent and better acted because they have to read while they're watching it, thus they're using more parts of their brain. I've made that argument for years. That people are like, why do foreign films have such better, more naturalistic acting and better dialogue? It's because you're fucking reading while you're watching the movie. And you don't understand that language, so you don't even know how they're delivering some of these things. So you're just assuming it's better and ignoring all of these American films with brilliant acting and writing. It's like, why are you ignoring people like David Mamet? Why are you ignoring Billy Wilder movies? Or Francis Ford Coppola, and on and on and on. It's like plenty of American films are just as great. Well, no one's saying that dubs are better than subs. No one's fucking saying that. I'm just saying that I've often felt that when people act like there's this more intellectual side to movies that have subtitles or art, I think it's because of the subtitles. A lot of the time there's certain movies that have come out that get like mixed reviews, and I'm like, if that movie was a foreign film with subtitles and it had the exact same plot, everybody would say that movie's brilliant. Like, I can't think of one off the top of my head, but there's some movies I've seen in the theater and I'm like, if this was a foreign film, critics would give this film like 9 out of 10 reviews, 4-star reviews, but they would say it's a better movie than it is. Because there's a lot of foreign films that get really acclaimed, and I'm like, like, one that comes to mind is like Blue is the Warmest Color, which is a really, really bad movie. I think sometimes, but I don't think in particular with when it comes to voice acting in a video in a animation. People always tell me that the Japanese voice actor is better than American voice actor. I'm like, well, one, they're better suited for that art form because their delivery is more suited to the writing. But you can't just assume that voice actor is a better voice actor than an American voice actor. It's just harder for an American voice actor to do anime. Like, Billy Wilder is a better voice actor than most Japanese voice actors. Dan Castellaneta is Homer Simpson's a better voice actor. It's just hard to translate that stuff. But I hate when people say that, like, well, they're not as good as Japanese voice actors. It's like, you don't fucking know that. You're just basing it off them doing a bad dub on an anime that was poorly directed by the person who was supposed to do the translation and write the scripts. Yeah, that's the thing. Anime in English doesn't really work that well. I've seen times where it's worked, like Death Note and Cowboy Bebop, but a lot of the times it just doesn't translate. But that's not a reflection of voice acting. It just doesn't really work. It's like why dubs are shitty. It's really hard to dub a movie, because you're dubbing over lips and they're saying something different than what you're saying, so it doesn't work. So I've never really agreed with this whole like everything foreign, because I used to be that way when I was a teenager in my early 20s. I thought foreign films were so much better than anything in America, and I can agree with anime, um, because they were poorly directed. That's why the English delivery is so weak in most anime dubs, is because they were poorly directed. They hire a cheap studio, to do it. They have a poor director handling the and then they have somebody doing a bad job with the script. So they just have somebody come into a booth and say a line, and they're not directed well, or they don't know what they're speaking over, and then it's just put over top of the animation in a very sloppy way. Like, if you go watch the dub, them doing the dub for Death Note and how it's directed and how they sync it up, you'll see that that's how you should do a dub for an anime. They're telling them, like, hey, you have to talk faster. This is a lot of dialogue that needs to be said very quickly, so the actors have to have a certain rhythm and a pace. A lot of animes don't have that level of detail put into the dub. That's all it is. You can do a decent dub of an anime, but it takes a lot of work, and it takes somebody that knows how to do it, and there's not a lot of people that know how to do it. Because if you see a good dub, that's an argument that it is possible, and we've seen that it's possible with anime. I mean, Cowboy Bebop's dub is amazing, you know. But the amount of time and effort they put into the Cowboy Bebop dub, did they put that same time and effort into other dubs? I would say no. Especially back in the day, the dubs they used to do in the 80s and 90s, they put no effort into at all. That's why so many of those old school dubs are fucking horrible. They were always just done by some company that would just hire voice actors and have them do a horrible job. But I've heard dubs in other languages that are really good. I think Porco Rosso, the best version of that movie, is the French one with Jean Reno doing the voice of Porco. So... But typically I would say watch anime and subtitles. I mean, I prefer subtitles as well. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that I like dubs better than subs. I'm saying that I think because people read subtitles a lot of the time, they attribute that with it being a more intellectually stimulating thing. But they're not factoring in that they're reading subtitles while they're watching a movie instead of just watching a movie. You can even test this if you watch English language films with subtitles on. It's a much different experience. My friend used to do that all the time. He would watch every movie with subtitles on so he could know all the dialogue for the movie. We'd watch the movie, and I would always be looking down at the damn subtitles instead of just watching a scene. I would always be reading what was happening a lot of the time. And it was a different kind of involvement with the movie. It's a different experience. But I will say I've come to find that I think Eastern storytelling, I hate to say it, I think the weeaboos and the fucking otakus ended up being right in a lot of ways. I do think Korean, Japanese storytelling and writing and comics and movies and all that is world class and could be argued as like the best that we've had over the last like 30-40 years. Especially like, yeah, so much great manga and anime. I mean, there's a lot of bad too, but the deeper I've gotten into Asian cinema and Asian art, it's just like, wow, these guys are on another level because they really reflect on their flaws and their past and their fucked up history more so than a lot of American art does. And there's just something very unique about Asian culture that's explored in their art. That's really, even their perversions and the way they see horror and comedy. I'm just very fascinated with it. Yeah, no, the French dub of Porco is really, really good. Very entertaining. Okay, Bad Boys for Life is at 11.5 million this weekend. Only a 4% drop. That is a terrific hold. $90 million budget. It's at 183 mil domestic, 370 million worldwide. Will definitely make over $400 million worldwide, and will definitely make over $200 million worldwide. This is a big win for Sony, and particular a big win for Will Smith. Will Smith is making a comeback after Gemini Man. I know it's Gemini Man, but I like calling it Gemini Man. The Photograph. So which one do we go with? Do we go with the Nickelback, look at this photograph? Or do we go with the Def Leppard, photograph, I don't want your... I don't know which one we go with. $16 million budget. The movie has made $13 million so far. I don't know what the hell this movie is. Where did this come from? They did an adaptation of Fantasy Island? Like a remake? A horror adaptation of the popular 70s TV show about a magical island? Was it the Ricardo Montalban? What? Budget $7 million, domestic $13 million. What the fuck is this? Who made a $7 million horror adaptation of Fantasy Island? That's fascinating. Gemini Man. DBZ during the Free Saga has some bad dubbing I picked up. I mean, all of Dragon Ball Z has some pretty bad dubbing. It's just great. There's something about a bad dub being entertaining. I mean, have you guys ever heard the original Akira dub? I mean, it's hilarious. Let's hit it! I mean, I quote that shit all the time. A bad dub can have some fucking hilarious delivery. Like, there's some 90s animes that I love watching the bad dub for. Blumhouse, if you can believe it. Alright, Naruto, I can believe it. I love that they changed the title of Birds of Prey. Now, Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn. What a fucking horrible title. Oh my god, why didn't you just call the movie Quinn? Quinn and her Birds of Prey or something, or just, I mean... Oh my god. This is like the opposite of Sonic. Like, they went out of their way to do a bad job of marketing it. They never want to have Harley Quinn in her costume from the comics, except for that one shot in Suicide Squad. In fact, her costume's kind of horrible in this movie. And, I mean... Oh yeah, Vegeta. Well, Vegeta's actually great in the DBZ dub. Let me ask you, has a machine like yourself ever experienced fear? Like, he's actually kind of great. Harley Quinn's Day Off. Yeah, it is like a Tarantino parody within a movie. That's a good way of putting it. Yeah. Yeah, they should have got a more stylistic director to do this movie. They should have went like more Tarantino with it. That actually would have been a good idea. I have read Berserk, yes. I have read it, yes. I'm not up to date, but I've read 75% of Berserk, and yeah, it is one of my favorite comic books or mangas of all time. Definitely dark fantasy. I'm a huge dark fantasy guy, and I'm like most people. I think the best part of Berserk is the Golden Age or whatever, the part with Griffith and him and the Eclipse. I mean, that's the best run of that whole fucking book. And it's like Game of Thrones. I mean, it reminds me of what I liked about George Martin's Game of Thrones. It was the plot and the politics, not so much the action. When I was first reading Berserk, I was like, why is this so fucking hyped up? This is just like big guy walking around with the giant sword fighting monsters. Like, why is this so famous? Then once I actually got into it, I was like, oh, holy shit, this is fucking layered and morally complex and fucking dark. I mean, one of my biggest issues with it is how much rape there is in it, of like trolls raping girls or demons raping girls, how many fake out rapes there are. I don't mind there being rape and messed up stuff in the book, but there's so much of it at a point that it almost becomes like a cliche within the storytelling. It gets a little too excessive, but that's more in the early parts of the book. It's like something like The Lost Children. I don't think that's too messed up because I think thematically it ties into things well, but like when the trolls are just kidnapping the women in that village and then just going and raping them and getting them pregnant, and then they like the babies blow out of their stomach. It's just stuff like that I don't think's great. I think it's like it's too like late 80s, early 90s anime manga stuff. But the bulk of Berserk is phenomenal. And it's got such a great supporting cast and world and the art and all that stuff. I mean, I'm a huge fan of it. I'm borderline one of those fanboys that overhypes it a little bit, but there's part of me that just wishes it was fucking over though. Like, oh my god, this is long. Like, I read a lot of Berserk. There was one point I read so much of it, I was like, this is so fucking long. I remember I was reading like just issue after issue for fucking like days on end, and I was like, oh my god, I read like fucking 500 pages of this goddamn thing, and there's still so much to read. Ever since the New 52, they've been trying to make Harley Quinn into an obnoxious character. Well, Harley Quinn I've never loved that much. I like her in the animated series. I like whenever Paul Dini writes her. But that's about it. I don't think Harley Quinn's that great of a character. I think she works best in like animation. And I think she works best when she's playing off the Joker in a Batman story. I don't think she's this great, amazing character, and I never have. And one of the things about her that's likable is her sex appeal. She always had sex appeal, and she has sex appeal in Suicide Squad, and then for some reason that offended Margot Robbie. Yet she had no problem getting naked in Wolf of Wall Street, and she had no problem with that bathtub monologue that's completely pointless in Adam McKay's The Big Short. But she didn't like that Harley Quinn was sexualized. So then she tries to unsexualize the character in this movie. That worked out, didn't it, Margot? I like how Margot Robbie like became famous doing all of these like sexual roles, and then all of a sudden she's like, I don't want Harley Quinn to be sexualized. Why? Why is it okay for Thor to be shirtless in a movie, and nobody says that's a bad thing? Because it's not. It's okay to have sexuality in movies. It's okay for Captain America's ass to be in a movie. But Harley Quinn can't wear a tight outfit that looks like the baseball Furies from the Warriors. I don't know. Yeah, now here's Margot Robbie in a bathtub explaining stocks. I know. Like, she didn't have a problem with that scene. I think that's much more offensive if you're coming from that angle than Harley Quinn, because Harley Quinn's outfit in Suicide Squad, it just kind of made sense. It was sort of like Roller Girl and the Baseball Furies. I mean, you got what the inspiration was. I don't know why she has her in this really like clown costume in this movie. Doesn't look good. And it's like even her makeup and everything, she's just less pretty looking in this movie. Which I don't really care, that doesn't matter, but it was weird that Margot Robbie cared. I think it's because we have treated male gaze as 100% as a bad thing all the time, regardless of context. I know they did. I don't know how. They made Mary Elizabeth Winstead look like the worst she's ever looked, and she's like one of the most beautiful women in the world. It's infuriating. No, I think there's funny humor like that in anime, yeah, for sure. Depends on what you're reading, but yeah. I don't disagree with that. Yeah, no, they make Mary Elizabeth Winstead less pretty. I mean, it's not like I needed them to be hot, but it was like, why did you make that such a point? What did that matter? Well, I know that Harley Quinn was created by Bruce Timm and Paul Dini. Everybody knows that. They're trying to make her a female Deadpool. Yeah, Deadpool, that movie where he's getting fucked up the ass by a woman, and you see his dick. It's like, once again, like Margot Robbie, like, it's like, yeah, you're missing the point. It's okay to have sexual content in movies. It doesn't have to be a negative thing. Sexuality can be a positive thing. I think so. I think the Harlequin costume from the comic books and the from the animated show, the original animated show, I think would be a great idea. I don't know why they haven't done that. It's just kind of fucking confusing to me. I don't know why DC has such an issue with the costumes. Why can't women have control and power in their sexuality? Why does their sexuality have to be a negative thing because it's viewed through men? Why can't a woman be in control of her sexuality and not care what men think? Like, why can't Harley Quinn just be a sexual person? Like, what's wrong with that? Oh, okay. I mean, I don't think that I think you can do more with Harley Quinn. I think Suicide Squad having her in that was very clever. And I think it helped the box office. But I think giving her own movie was not a good idea. And it was just, I mean, it's just a vanity project at this point. Yeah, I don't know why it's so wrong for women to be sexy. I don't get that. I don't know. I don't know when that became a bad thing. Even though she looks in the poster, she's wearing this, like, yeah, these overalls with the pink. I mean, I get what they were going for with this movie. They wanted this, like, more campy, fun, over the top exploitation, stylistic sort of thing. I get what they were going for. It just backfired. I don't actually think this was a horrible idea all the way. They just didn't do a good job advertising it, and clearly people aren't responding to the movie. The word of mouth's not there. It cost $85 million. It's only at 61 mil domestic, and it's at $145 million worldwide. It's going to have a hard time making $100 million domestic, and I don't think 300 million worldwide is very possible. I don't really see how they break even on this movie. I think you'd have to make $250 to $300 million worldwide for this movie to do okay. And they're not going to make it. And it was just a bad release by Warner Brothers. I think, yeah, they didn't sell the movie on what it was. I mean, they really didn't give you a sense of the other characters like Huntress and Black Canary. They didn't give you a sense of the villain. They didn't really show you good things in trailers. I mean, I just remember the trailers being really bad. I don't think the posters and all the marketing was very good. I think they were just putting way too much stock on Margot Robbie and Harley Quinn, which was not a good idea. I mean, even Robert Downey Jr., like, he can sell an Iron Man movie, but if he didn't have the whole MCU around him as well, though, I mean, that kept that character alive. You can't just hope that, like, one character can sell the whole thing. It's got to be part of a brand. The DC universe, most people probably think it's dead. I mean, this came out and people are like, well, we all like Joker, but that had nothing to do with this. I don't think people give a fuck about Suicide Squad and a follow-up to it, or Man of Steel or Justice League. It was kind of stupid to do a follow-up in that universe. They should have just ended the DCEU, except for Wonder Woman and Aquaman. It said, okay, they can continue on in their own movies, and we'll continue those stories because they both did really well. People wanted to go see Aquaman, and people wanted to go see Wonder Woman. And we could do a new Batman movie, and we could do all these new movies. We could do Joker as a standalone thing, but this stuff has nothing to do. There's no connected universe anymore. But this film is still tied to that universe. And I think that was a big reason why it didn't do well, because I think people are fucking confused as to what's going on. And I guess it just shows that Harley Quinn wasn't a popular enough character. Mary Elizabeth Winstead's super hot because of her face. She has, like, almost like an anime face. She has, like, a very Asian face. If you actually, she has, like, these big anime eyes. It's those chick with those really pretty anime faces. They have, like, huge doll eyes and soft skin and cheeks. Women like that are always beautiful. You can see women like that sometimes in your real life. They look like they have that, like, anime character thing going on, that doll thing. Mary Elizabeth always does. She had that shit in Sky High. It's annoying. She's too pretty. It's fucking annoying. Like, I kind of hate it, but she should have been one of the all-time great Scream Queens horror villains, which I thought was going to happen. And all we got was 10 Cloverfield Lane. That's it. Every other movie she starred in that was supposed to be that film, like The Thing prequel and all that, they were all fucking horrible. Yeah, I wish they would go back to Christopher Nolan stuff like Batman Begins. It was weird. Tarantino even had that, like, as his second favorite Nolan film. He was like Dunkirk and then Batman Begins, and I totally get what he means. Batman Begins feels like a proto-Marvel film. I feel like Marvel, in particular Iron Man, took so much from Batman Begins, and you go back and watch Batman Begins, and it's just a Marvel movie. It's got the Marvel formula. and it still feels fresh. It still really holds up. Oh man, I agree. Mary Elizabeth Winstead as Poison Ivy. I mean, they might have to give her some fake boobs because unfortunately she has like a flat chest. I'm not saying I have an issue with that, but I picture Poison Ivy with a bit more boob going on. Although I always like the idea of Mary Elizabeth Winstead as Catwoman. And I'm talking like the Catwoman with the goggles, like the really cute Catwoman. Not that Anne Hathaway wasn't a good Catwoman, but I would have liked to have seen Mary Elizabeth Winstead as Catwoman. I think she was really wasted playing in this and not getting to play Poison Ivy. Yeah, why didn't they make this movie with Poison Ivy and Catwoman and those? Like, this movie could have made a lot more money if it had been Birds of Prey, and it would have starred Harley Quinn, Catwoman, and Poison Ivy. Christina Hendricks, holy shit. But yeah, that should have been the movie. Instead, they get all these characters that nobody knows outside of comic book fans. Yeah, she has like a curvier Sigourney Weaver. That's a terrific way of putting it. She does kind of have that Sigourney Weaver face. There's almost something kind of masculine about it. This athleticism, or this masculinity to her. Yeah, I agree with you, Aubrey Plaza. Yeah. No, those are like two of my goddesses. It's like Aubrey Plaza and Mary Elizabeth Winstead. Those are my two, like, you can't get, better looking than them in my eyes. And both of them are in Scott Pilgrim, and it's like, oh my god, holy shit. And Aubrey Plaza, it's like, how the hell are you this, like, attractive with being this weird? That would be funny if they were both in this. If it was like Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Aubrey Plaza, and fucking Margot Robbie were in this movie together. Holy shit. Because I remember laughing. Because I found out Ewan McGregor's wife left him. And I was like, really? Wow, what happened? They got a divorce? I was so upset. I was reading about Dr. Sleep. And I was like, what happened? And it was like, had an affair with co-star Mary Elizabeth Winstead during the filming of Fargo season 3. I read that afterwards, and I was like, oh. I was like, well, I mean, I still don't like it, but shit. But that was funny. Yeah, Birds of Prey. What the fuck were they thinking? I don't know what the hell. Can't wait to watch some Cell Saga next. It's so perfect. God, the Cell Saga, Jesus Christ. And then when they remake the Cell Saga with the Majin Buu Saga, which is the Cell Saga Part 2. Hey, Pat, thoughts on the Robert Pattinson Batman suit? Not just the suit, the pictures. They released a video. I gotta say, I'm not that into it. I wish I was, because I like Matt Reeves well enough. Even though I find his Apes movies to be overrated. And I'm really excited about what he's going to do with Batman. I like how he does violence. And I like... No, it's true, Casper, I know. I think most people feel this way, though. But I don't like the look of it so far. I didn't like the cowl. I don't really... the suit looks okay. I kind of like the cape. We didn't really get a good look at it, though. That's the problem. They did a really bad job of showing what it looks like. Like, they have this red light over it, and you can't really get a good sense of the scale of it and what he looks like. I don't think they should have released those specific... I mean, we don't even get to see the ears. So I don't even know. Are they going to be long? Are they the short ears? Like, I don't know... I don't know why they didn't show more of the suit or like do a full body shot. It's a very odd way of how they released it with the red and all that. Like, what color is it? Is it black? Is it more blue gray? It's weird that they're doing more of the armored Christopher Nolan thing and less of what they were doing with the Ben Affleck suit, which looked more like a comic book version, or not the Arkham games, more the comic book Batman. I was kind of hoping what Matt Reeves was going to do was do something that was more like Dark Knight Returns-esque, where it just seems like kind of a crazy guy in a Halloween costume going out there and beating the shit out of people and convincing himself that he needs to do this. I was hoping it was going to be more like Joker. I've been wanting long ears for Batman for a long time. I was hoping it was going to be more that Robert Pattinson is like Bruce Wayne is crazy and he wears a Batman costume, and because he's rich, he has these gadgets and he's trained in martial arts and he goes and beats the fuck out of people as the Batman. He's like a creature that he's created. And I would prefer that. And I thought that was more of what they were going to go with. But now I'm seeing that he's like all armored like the Chris Nolan Batman. And I'm thinking it's going to be more of an action movie. You know, because I want a small scale, gritty Batman movie. I want something where it's like The Raid. I want Batman's like stuck in Arkham Asylum and he's got to fight his way to the main bad guy, like how Dredd was. I want like a $65-70 million Batman movie. I don't want a $200 million, $150 million Batman movie. I want a movie where like Batman's out one night following a case. He's doing a detective, because Matt Reeves has said this is more of a noir. It's a detective story. I want Batman out one night trying to solve a case, and he's putting the clues together. Kick-Ass was like that for sure, and he can't really figure it out, and then at the end there's so many questions left open instead of answers. He never really solves the case, and it's just this mystery he can't solve. It's sort of like Chinatown. It just ends in a tragedy. And yeah, I've always wanted, that's always been the Batman movie I've wanted, is a grittier. Christopher Nolan got a lot of that right with The Dark Knight. Like the grittiness of it, the way the Gotham City looked, Chicago looked, the Joker scenes, all that stuff. A crime movie. That's a lot of what I wanted from a Batman movie. But I want more of the detective aspects. I want more of the Maltese Falcon. I want the Raymond Chandler stuff. I want him interviewing people. I want him to have the femme fatale. I want him to have to use gadgets and get clues and be in the Batcave with Alfred trying to figure out what's going on. And he has to be intelligent. And he's a little crazy too. And he goes a little far sometimes to get what he wants because he's frustrated because he can't solve it. But he ultimately always wins because he outsmarts people, not because he has brute force. Like fighting is a last resort for this Batman. I would want this Batman to use stealth and once again his intelligence to win the day, which is when Batman's at his best. And yeah, I would just like him to seem a little off, and I'd like it to be a very small, intimate story that doesn't have a lot of CGI and big action set pieces. And I think with how popular the Joker was, I think that people are ready for a Batman movie like that that's not a big, giant blockbuster, but more of a movie, a drama that stars Batman. You have him in the costume for a lot of the movie, and it's a focused story with a very, essentially a lot of that's what Tim Burton was trying to do in Batman 89. He was trying to have it be a small, Gotham City seems like it only has 20 people in that movie, but he was trying to make it just about like Vicky Vale and Bruce Wayne and Jack Napier and how they were all connected. Something like that with just better writing and more Batman in it, where like it's got about 5 main characters and there's a mystery and they're all kind of tied to it. And Batman's trying to solve this mystery and it brings up a lot of shit from the past. The only movie to ever actually do that is Mask of the Phantasm. But we don't need a big non-stop CGI Batman movie. We don't need a Batman movie with a bunch of stupid set pieces. We don't need a bunch of silly one-liners. We need a fucking, a smart movie, an intelligent movie, that deals with the psychology of what it is to be Batman. No, I don't want it to be like Drive. I like that idea, like a ref-en like Batman movie. I would say I would want something more like, I'm trying to think of a good comparison of exactly what I'm talking about. Because anything that comes to mind would be wouldn't work. Like I would think like The Long Goodbye or something. But really for me, yeah, like Chinatown. I would like it to feel like Chinatown. or like Zodiac or something, like a David Fincher movie, like a procedural, or Memories of Murder. Could you imagine a Memories of Murder with like Batman in it? You know, or Zodiac. Like maybe the story even spans a couple of years. Batman spends a couple of years on this, and it's like his life through it and putting the pieces together, and the people that come in and out of his life and how they change over those years and are affected by this case, their obsession. Something like Silence of the Lambs or Seven. Maybe less so Seven because of the gore aspects, but something like Silence of the Lamb, like something more like that, like a thriller or murder mystery, suspense, long, intense conversations, stuff like that. That's what I would like to see. I'd like to see Batman, uh, having intelligent conversations with people. I mean, really, the Joker Batman interrogation scene is pretty perfect for what I would like a whole movie to be like. That scene in The Dark Knight with the Joker, in particular Heath Ledger in that sequence, that's kind of what I always wanted a Batman movie to be like. Because I feel like if that was in a comic book, that would be brilliant. And it's just two guys sitting in a room, really, really a lot of lighting, and they're just talking. Mainly the Joker talking. That's really what they need to get to. To me, that's when Batman could really work, is that he doesn't need all the spectacle. Yeah, The Game. Oh, that would be terrific if it was like The Game where that's a brilliant idea. Yeah. If only The Game wasn't already a movie, because that's so good. Like somebody buys Bruce Wayne The Game and he has to go through it, but they don't realize he's Batman. So he starts to have to figure out who's running this game as Batman, but they're attacking Wayne Manor like that movie. Yeah, that would be terrific. That's a great idea, actually. Yeah, that's a great idea. I got to give you credit for that. And you somehow get the Riddler involved or something like that. But somebody buys Bruce Wayne the package for the game. But totally, the scenes in the game, like the first half of the game, where stuff's just happening to Michael Douglas, I would like to see a Batman movie like that, where he like walks into a trap set by the Riddler or somebody, and he has to go through a maze and solve things and stuff like that. And it's no CGI. It's just really good production design, really good cinematography, and Batman having to solve something. He has to be smarter than the person trying to trap him. Yeah, the girl is on it and all that. Yeah, well, basically that thing Joel Schumacher did with Batman, where it's like you have to pick between Robin and Nicole Kidman, and I'm gonna kill one of them, and the Riddler and Two-Face, and it's like we're gonna kill me. Stuff like that, moral choices, and he has to figure out the way to save both of them by outsmarting them. Or more scenes like that terrific scene in Batman Begins where Bruce Wayne has to go out and act drunk to get everyone to leave the mansion because he knows Ra's al Ghul and his men are going to attack people, so he gets them out of there, and he pretends to be drunk, which is very smart. That's a really well-written scene, and it's showing how smart Bruce Wayne is, and he has to pretend to be someone else for all these people to leave, but that's not who he really is, and it's that dichotomy. It's that kind of stuff that I really like. That I would like a Batman. Well, yeah, the Safdie brothers doing Batman. That would be, especially with Robert Pattinson. I would love if the Safdie brothers were doing Batman. That'd be fucking badass. I mean, I would like to see a movie with the Bat family and the Robins and Nightwing and all that too. That's a big budget spectacle thing, but you would have to set that up so much and do that over a series of movies. If Matt Reeves is just trying to make a fresh Batman movie, I think the way to do it is to scale it down. Scale it down even more than Nolan did. I mean that too, like really scale it down. Because Nolan still had a lot of big set pieces and CGI and all that stuff, and I don't think you need a big set piece in a Batman movie. I don't think you need it at all, quite frankly. I don't think you need a bunch of fight scenes. I mean, I think you could have some really cool fight scenes if you do it like John Wick and The Raid. But I think the best way to do it would be more like Batman is a detective. I mean, really, he's a detective. That's what he's doing. He's trying to solve something. He's trying to save the day. That's what I want to see. I don't care to see Batman in the Batmobile chasing another car and things blowing up. I mean, that stuff's cool. I'm not saying that's not cool, but yeah, see, I would like the Safdies close-ups and shaky cam and all that. I think that would all look terrific. The way they get those claustrophobic shots. I mean, their camera setups are fucking terrific. I don't know how they get them. They get such claustrophobic shots. I don't know how they get they have these long lenses and they get these tight ass shots, man. And how they do the sound mixing. I would love to see that with Batman. I think that would be awesome. Especially if it was really focused, if it only took place over like one night or 2 nights or something like that. But also I would like to see something like Dredd too. I think Dredd did a good job. And it didn't have shaky cam. I mean, it would be cool to see Thrawn, I guess, but that's not like... I don't know. I don't really even know if a Star Wars sequel trilogy was ever really a good idea as a movie, to be honest with you. Like, that's what I think about. Yeah, Law-Abiding Citizen, I think about all the time, how that's like a supervillain story. That's like a comic book movie. It's a comic book movie told from the supervillain's point of view. That's what I always found really amusing about that movie. All right, let's talk about Sonic, guys. Sonic comes out, the initial trailer, and this movie looks like it's going to be a fucking disaster. And it's like, okay, another bomb comic book movie. Here we go. This movie's going to open to like $30 million and bomb. 100%. And everybody was shitting on it. Then they said, okay, we're going to redesign it. And it's like, okay, well, you redesigned it, but that doesn't mean the movie's going to be better. And then the trailers start coming out. Then I start noticing everyone's talking about this movie. I'm at my job working and someone's like, yeah, man, they're making a Sonic movie. Yeah, I'm going to go see that. And people are like, hey, did you see they're making a Sonic movie? And that's what I kind of go off of is the real world. If you start, not the MTV show, but if you start hearing people talk about a movie and people ever keep coming to me, it's like, hey, you see they made a Sonic movie? Jim Carrey's in it? And I'm like, yeah. And it's like this big return to 90s Jim Carrey, goofy Jim Carrey. And that's what a lot of critics are saying. They're like praising Jim Carrey. And what sucks is I actually think a Sonic movie could be awesome. Like, I haven't seen this movie, but I actually think John Ralphio voicing Sonic, Jim Carrey as Robotnik, if you set it in the actual world of the video game and not did this whole James Marsden real world thing, I think you could make a really fun, like, basically animated Sonic movie. I think you could make a really, really fun movie with that. But I think they've sold this movie really well, not just to people who like Sonic, but I think to little kids who maybe aren't as aware of Sonic, but they're like, I want to go see that movie with the fast-talking, running around cool little blue thing. And I think the kids did not like how the original design looked, but this new design, he is fucking adorable. Sonic is such a cool design. Like, just this face and his attitude, I've always been obsessed. I mean, I think most fans of Sonic are more obsessed with the aesthetic than anything else. Sonic just looks great. And I'm not even a furry, I'm not into anthropomorphic stuff, but Sonic, Tails, like, I'm a Tails fan too, Knuckles, they just look badass. Very well designed characters. And that was the whole appeal, and they finally learned that. They're like, wait, he should look like what the design is. So then the movie starts getting this hype out of nowhere. Like, it's a total role reversal. The film comes from, like, the bottom to, like, running in the fucking loop, shooting up into the air and getting a fucking 100 coins and then getting a life and then jumping through the fucking ring at the end and going to the afterlife to get extra lives and an emerald. I mean, it becomes supersonic, man. I mean, out of nowhere, this is like a huge, hyped up, big event movie. So then a movie that might have opened to $30 million in bomb opens to $58 million and then to $70 million over the 4-day weekend on the holiday. And this movie has an $85 million budget. Now, there's rumors that the budget is over $100 million because that they had to redo the special effects. Either way, though, $113 million worldwide opening. $70 million domestic in the first 4 days? And the reviews are positive. It's got like 65% on Rotten Tomatoes for a video game movie? Like, think of Prince of Persia and all those other movies that did not get good reviews and that didn't perform that well. I mean, as of right now, not knowing how the second weekend's going to be or where the film's going to end up, this movie right now looks like a hit, and it looks like it's doing a lot better than Detective Pikachu. A lot of people thought Detective Pikachu is going to be that first movie that was going to be a real breakout hit. And a lot of people thought, I remember a lot of people in my chat were like, Detective Pikachu is going to make $700-800 million. Then it made like $450 million. It didn't make near the amount people thought, especially with how big Pokemon is. I mean, I thought Detective Pikachu was going to do better, but really, here was the thing. The Pokemon looked right. They did look good, but it wasn't really a Pokemon movie. It was a Detective Pikachu thing with Ryan Reynolds talking as Pikachu. This is more Sonic's the main character, and he's Sonic. And As of right now, this looks like a hit. I mean, I think this is going to make over $200 million domestic just based off this right now. And I think it could make over 500 million worldwide. And they could have a franchise here. And I think this is not only a big deal for video game movies. I think this is a big deal for Jim Carrey coming back. I think this is a big deal for studios learning that you can make something closer to what the original property is, and people will go see it. I think this was a brilliant move by the studio and Mark. Almost the fact that it looked bad at first and they fixed it made this movie more positive than if it had looked good from the first place, if that makes any sense. And yeah, if Sonic 100 coins, I said coins, rings, 100 rings. So you said coin so much because of Mario. Yeah, it did. It's a crazy thing. It's like a psychological experiment. You had a movie with really crappy trailers that looked like a mediocre movie, and I'm sure it's still a mediocre generic movie, but because they changed one thing, the design of the main character, everybody acted more positive about it. It was that one thing that affected the entire thing and changed the future of this movie and the box office of this movie and how people felt about this movie. It went from all this negativity to all this positivity where people were excited about it. And now you can introduce characters like Knuckles and Shadow and do more with this. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I agree that some of them look uncanny valley, but for the most part, they looked good. But yeah, I mean, fuck yeah, it's weird. You're so right. Everybody changed their whole mood about this once Sonic looked like Sonic. And another credit you got to say is that, this just shows how well Sonic's held up as a character. I mean, I would like to see the Riddler again, really. I mean, you're asking me someone else, but I would really like to see the Riddler. I'd also like to see the character Scarface somehow, the guy who has the dummy and it talks and it's the villain. But I think doing a new Riddler story is something they've been needing to do for a while. I think the Riddler's a really cool villain that we haven't had since Batman Forever. Yeah, Paul Dano as the Riddler is fucking awesome. Yeah, I know. Fan bases will actually make your movie successful. Maybe that's what they're learning. Maybe that's shocker. Maybe that's why the MCU is more successful than any other movie franchise ever. Because they never gave the middle finger to the fans. Kevin Feige, the cast, everyone involved, always supported the fans, always went to the Comic-Cons, always did the interviews, always talked about the fans, always tried to give them what they wanted and give them more than what they wanted. You want Thanos to look good. We hear you. He will look good by the time Infinity War comes out. There's a reason for that, man. I mean, fandom can unite people. Game of Thrones had that at one point. You can't blame the fans for anything. Game of Thrones, D&D fucked that up and ruined that themselves. Game of Thrones could have been something phenomenal that ran for 15 years, have been like nothing we'd ever seen before. But I'm just so happy about this, man. As a Sonic fan, as a fan of movies, as a fan of the box office, I love that a studio made a major decision after a movie was finished and it changed the course of the movie where it became a success because they actually listened to the feedback and they thought, you know what, if maybe we can change the reception on this. If we can save this now, we can change how people feel about this, and then we can remarket this movie and it'll have a different spin and people will be positive, and we can get kids to go see this movie and parents will know the brand enough to go see it. And that's exactly what they fucking did. It was very clever. It was just very smart. How you could say, well, they should have just done that from the beginning. It's like, yes, but maybe they didn't know how it was going to come out. They're like, okay, well, maybe we should try to make him look a little bit more realistic. But then they're like, oh, fuck, people just want him to look like a cartoon character. Remember when we lost our virginities to Batman v Superman and then Zack Snyder was already down the road? Zack Snyder's a great example of a guy who just, like, hates fans. And hates that people tell him that, like, you're fucking this up. Like, how dare you criticize my Superman? Instead of actually trying to fix it. Which is what happened with Rise of the Skywalker and with Justice League. They tried to course correct a lot of stuff and it didn't work, but that was too much. With this movie, it's not like they reshot the whole movie and rewrote the whole movie and redid it. They just changed the design of Sonic. With those other movies, they tried to redo the whole movie after it was already made. That's different. You can't fix that. You can fix those little things in aesthetics. Because a lot of Sonic's personality comes from the look of the character. The look before, it's like, it was so vague. It was so weird. It was like you didn't get a sense of anything comedy about it. Or the attitude or anything. And I wish they leaned on his attitude a little bit more in the trailers. He seems a little goofy. And I like my Sonic to be a little bit more of an asshole. I disagree. The Batman v Superman Extended Edition was actually a good movie. I have watched it, and I don't think it's a good movie. I still think it's a bad movie. I've heard people say that. I've heard people say, like, oh, watch the Extended Ultimate Edition. It's better. It's like, no. Those scenes don't make the movie better. Having more of the goon bad guys who kill Jimmy Olsen at the beginning, having more of those scenes doesn't make that plot better or the acting better. All the stuff that's bad about the movie is still in the movie. They just basically explain the main plot going on with Luther and all that better and what's actually going on. But I still don't think it's a good movie. I still think it's like bad filmmaking. Well, I'm not specifically talking about Man of Steel. I'm just saying these movies that they tried to fix, like they tried to redo Justice League with Joss Whedon. They reshot so much of Rise of the Skywalker. I'm just saying with Sonic, it shows that you can fix like one major thing, and that can do a lot for your movie. Yeah, I mean, I like the warehouse fight scene. One of my issues with it is that that basically is just taking the Arkham games, with him taking the guns out and then the way he fights the guys. I mean, it was cool to see, but what was cool about the Arkham games is that stuff felt kind of fresh how they did it. I would like to see a filmmaker do new things with Batman, like come up with their own style and kind of movement and aesthetics. I'd like to see somebody do a unique thing that they kind of came up with. You know, Matt Reeves likes to do long tracking shots. He does that in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. He has that shot where he's on the tank and everything like that. He likes to do scenes like that, so I'm assuming there's probably going to be some long tracking shot of Batman, maybe like the fight in Old Boy, where he's taking on a lot of guys or maneuvering around something. Really, I would also like something that like what Nolan did in Batman Begins, where he's taking out all those guys in the warehouse one by one. It's like a horror movie. I would like Batman to be scarier and hidden in the shadows. I don't know if I necessarily want to see him brawling and fighting a bunch of guys. I like that stuff. And I do like that fight in Batman v Superman. I do. But I would also like to see Batman being more sneaky and slowly grabbing guys out of the shadows and all that stuff. That's the shit I want to see. Which I think just makes sense. It makes more sense to me if you're doing it more grounded that a guy would do that, then he's going to go into a room with like 20 guys and beat them all up. I prefer if he actually was just intelligent and slowly took guys out. I mean, that was one of the cool things of Batman Begins, is that he learned ninja stuff and deception and how to hide yourself and trick people, and then he uses those techniques he was taught when he first becomes Batman, and then he never does any of that shit ever again in the Batman movies. I mean, he tries to do it against Bane and Dark Knight Rises, but it was like that was a really cool thing in Batman Begins, is he actually like they showed you he learned ninja shit and then he tried to do ninja stuff. That's cool. That's Batman, you know? It'd be cool to see him do stealthy stuff. You know, we don't get a lot of cool stealth scenes in movies. A lot of the time. I really like Captain America Civil War. I think it's got a lot of problems, though. I much prefer Winter Soldier. I think when he cast him as Lex Luthor, he was thinking of Social Network Mark Zuckerberg, but he ended up giving a performance like that, so I don't really get it. I mean, I don't know with Matt Reeves, because ultimately it's going to come down to screenplay and a good story, but he's definitely a competent director. I mean, Let Me In's well shot. He did Cloverfield, I mean, he's a decent director technically, because I have big issues with this, in particular Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. I have real issues with that screenplay, but from a technical standpoint, it's pretty brilliant. So I also think that's a harder universe to tell stories in than Batman. I think with Batman, he has a lot to pull from. I mean, for my hopes, yeah, I think Winter Soldier's I think Winter Soldier's like a classic. I think Winter Soldier really holds up. Yeah, for me, the Russos, it's like Infinity War and Winter Soldier, and I'm way more mixed on Civil War and Endgame. But I really like uh, Winter Soldier and Infinity War. But I would love, that was the thing with fans. It's like how everyone was receptive to Infinity War after Last Jedi. Everyone was so divisive, and then Infinity War, like everyone loved it, and it's because it was what a lot of people wanted after 10 years. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, those scenes with John Wick before the nightclub scene where he just stealthy takes out guys. Yeah, I would love to see something like that with Batman. Obviously, he wouldn't be killing the guys, but it would be cool to see like that scene where he's like going down the hallway and taking guys out one by one very quietly to get to somebody. And then he gets to this some guy, and and then the guy gives him some information, and then he takes that information, and then he goes back to the Batcave, and he's with Alfred, and he's like, all right, he told me this name, let's enter it in the computer. Okay, this person worked here. Okay, we have to use this. Now I have this piece of information, I'm going to use this piece of information to go here. That's what I would like to see. Because we've never really seen that stuff in a Batman movie. We've seen elements of it, but we've never seen a whole Batman movie like that, which is what Matt Reeves claims this is. I would love it to be like Daredevil, the Daredevil show, without Karen and Foggy, but all the stuff with Matt Murdock, Charlie Cox, the scene where he fights his way out of that place, the guys of the chain. I mean that's kind of a brawl scene, but yeah, I would love to see them do more. Why does the Daredevil show have better fight scenes than comic book movies that cost way more money? I don't get it. How does that TV show have better fight scenes? I just don't fucking get it. Every time I watch that show, I'm like, why are the fight scenes in this so much better than the fight scenes in like a $200 million movie? How can you not do the same fight scenes? Did you like the idea that John Wick had to lose a finger? I hated the idea, but if not, it would be Marty's too. I mean, that's part of his character as he gets hurt. At the end of John Wick 2, you're like, this dude is fucked. It's like The Empire Strikes Back. It's like, fuck, he's screwed. I mean, actually, Daredevil's probably my favorite comic book character. I actually prefer Daredevil as a character to Batman in a lot of ways. I just think Gotham City and Batman's rogues galleries and the Robins. I mean, that's something I've often said about Batman. The most interesting thing about the whole Batman comic books and Detective Comics universe isn't Batman. It's Ra's al Ghul and the Joker and Poison Ivy and the Riddler and Mr. Freeze. It's Dick Grayson. It's Tim Drake, it's Jason Todd, it's Barbara Gordon, it's Jim Gordon, it's her becoming Oracle. That's the stuff about Batman I love. Or if you're just talking Bruce Wayne versus Matt Murdock, Daredevil versus Batman, I go with Matt Murdock, Daredevil. I think a much more interesting character overall. And a lot of the stuff Frank Miller did with Batman that became so iconic, he'd already done with Daredevil. And I actually think it suits Daredevil a little bit more than it does Batman. Batman's kind of confusing when it comes to that morality thing they do. It depends on who's writing him. Although I'm obsessed with Batman. Obviously, I have a Batman tattoo, Batman. But it's everything around Batman that's so brilliant. Spider-Man's that way too, even though Spider-Man's like amazing. The whole world around Peter Parker, the supporting characters and the villains and Aunt May and all that stuff's also amazing. That's what makes that universe so fulfilling, and why so many writers can come into that universe and write great things for them, like with Batman and Spider-Man. There's just such a great universe around those characters. Their world that they live in is so great. Oh yeah, I agree. Nolan did a really bad job with the blocking and the fight scenes, the hand-to-hand. Some of the hits you don't even see connect. I do like the nightclub part where he's just walking through beating up. It's cool to see Batman in a nightclub. Luckily, Dark Knight really isn't about the fist fight, so it doesn't take away from the movie too much, but I do agree the fist fights are done very bad in all three of those Nolan movies and in Dark Knight. Right, this fight with Bane looks like shit. But I luckily the bulk of those movies are more about like the vehicle. Actually, I take that back with the fight scene. I think the best set piece upon rewatch over the years is when Batman is climbing up the tower to get to the Joker, and the way he takes out all those guys, like the way he strings them up, and there's the part with the helicopter. I actually, the years I've been watching Dark Knight, that sequence, like when the guys are in the elevator, there's that great elevator shot, and the way he takes out all the SWAT guys in that's actually very Batman, and everyone kind of forgets about that action sequence. It's weird. It's like the least talked about action scene in the Nolan movies is the final big set piece of The Dark Knight, but it's actually really fucking good and very Batman. Like, I mean, there's some fist fighting in there, but for the most part, he's like just using gadgets and outsmarting everyone. I would prefer if Batman had his own universe apart from the DC. Yes, I love Spider-Man 2 and the Raimi's movies, and I even like Spider-Man 3. I think it's okay, but I love Spider-Man 2. Yeah, Ryan Johnson's not good at it either. Ryan Johnson in general is very Christopher Nolan. Like Brick is very much like an American Christopher Nolan film if Nolan was funnier. I think Brick is very Nolan. I think Brothers Bloom is very Nolan. I think what's Looper is very Christopher Nolan. I actually think Ryan Johnson has a lot in common with Nolan as a filmmaker, especially his aesthetics. Kind of this like gritty neo-noir style. I think their films look similar. But yeah, no, it's true that fight with the guards in Last Jedi has a lot of the same bad blocking and choreography. Yeah, it sucks that the Batman movies didn't have fight scenes like Winter Soldier or Daredevil. That would put those Nolan movies over the top if they had fight scenes that good. Like if you could go back and rewatch those fight scenes and they were done like the Daredevil fights, it'd be terrific. Yeah, no one talks about that. That scene with Lucius and the eco map device and the music. Yeah, the music is terrific. Batman looking up, Lucius talking to him. He has the white eyes. It's great. The part where he's like he grapples and he's like jumping up to get to the Joker. That's a terrific sequence. Maybe it gets overshadowed because then it's not the end of the movie. So people think about the ending and they kind of forget the action sequence before we get to the ending because that movie does have a fourth act. But yeah, here we go. Sonic the Hedgehog, 113 million worldwide, supposedly an $85 million budget. I've heard it's more than that. So yeah, huge. This is the biggest Jim Carrey movie in a while. This is the biggest video game opening of all time. And yeah, I mean, everything all around. This is just a big success for Paramount Pictures, and I don't think anybody was expecting it. And it's a real nice like counter to what Birds of Prey is doing. And you could also say what Bad Boys for Life is similar in that it's like, you know, you trust that there's an audience out there for that property and they'll come and see it. And that's what happened with Bad Boys, and that's what's happened with Sonic. And it's pretty awesome. Like, yeah, maybe you can make a point. Sonic looks like Sonic. Maybe if Harley Quinn was in her costume from the animated series, maybe it would have done better, you know? I mean, this is a good point to be made. And that's not a sexual costume, the Harley Quinn costume. It doesn't really have to be. So there's something interesting there. Ford v Ferrari is at 224 million worldwide. Portrait of a Lady on Fire that made 429,000 this week and one of the best reviewed films of the year. Let's see where Frozen 2's at. Frozen 2 make any more money? Still basically 1.4 billion, but I mean, what needs to be said, Frozen 2 is just massive hit. Really, in a lot of ways, like one of the top most successful films of last year. Let's see if Joker's made any more money. Well, yeah, wow, Joker's international number, 737 million. That's insane. Let's check Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's still at 374 million. I guess there's nothing else to talk about. There's the Pedro Almodovar movie, Pain and Glory. Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, 61 million. It's over. Uncut Gems is gonna wrap up at probably about 50 million, but it's dropping pretty fast, so I don't even know if it'll reach it. Had a lot of momentum and then died off. So yeah, so the story of the weekend, basically. Sonic the Hedgehog, Paramount Pictures fixed the design. Now they're saying, now there's going to be articles like this that fans are the problem and they have too much control. Of course, they bring up Gamergate because we can't move the fuck on from Gamergate. And fans having too much of control are going to keep artists and filmmakers from doing what they want to do with their works. So the director can do his brilliant depiction of the Sonic the Hedgehog character. What a travesty. Fantasy Island and the Photograph opened to 12 million. And Bad Boys continues to be a hit. 1917 continues to be a hit. And Parasite continues to make history after a big boost and a wider release after winning the Oscar for Best Picture. So yeah, I would give the weekend to Sonic. But I would say a good runner-up here, honestly, is Parasite. Just for the fact that it keeps going. This Parasite train, it just keeps going and going and going. Downhill, the Will Ferrell story. Does the fantasy movie have a little guy? I don't know. Do they? Do they have a little person in it? Any new or old movies you've seen? Any guest plans for the next Please Rewind Live? Well, now that I got the smoke alarm fixed, I can actually continue. That's the only reason there hasn't been a video uploaded in like 2.5 weeks is this fucking smoke alarm. Because I couldn't record any audio with it. Beeping out there, and I called the apartment and nobody came to fix it, so I had to fucking get on a stool today to fix it, so... And I just got switched to working nights at my job. So it's going to be different. I'll have to make videos during the daytime instead of working during the day and coming home and making videos at night. I'm going to have to try to make videos before I go to work at night. So it's going to be different. But I want to make a Taking Woodstock video I've been working on. The Chris Nolan video took a while, people. But I want to make a video on Taking Woodstock. I want to continue exploring Disney+. Please Rewind Live. Most likely we'll have Blood Money on the next episode. And I'm also working on a secret collaboration with someone else, but I don't want to say it because it's a video they're making, and I don't want to spoil that I'm working on that video with them. So I'm not gonna say. But there's a big video coming that I'm going to be involved with another YouTuber. I'd also like to get David Stewart back on here at some point. Well, yeah, but I don't want to say it because I think it would be better if they didn't know until the day of. You know what I mean? I would like it to be more of like a surprise. What about your Spill videos? I mean, there's a lot of those videos. Yeah, I want to do my like long epic on Spill. I want to do an epic Kanye series. I mean, guys, I work at a job where I work 50 hours a week. I don't know to tell you guys, it's hard. If I didn't have a job and I could spend all day writing and editing YouTube videos, I would. But I don't make money. I don't make a living off this. So I have to do my job. I'm not trying to be a dick. It's just I work 50 hours a week at another job. I don't have time. I work 5 days a week, sometimes 6 days a week. I don't have time to make those videos that I would want to make, that I think would be great. I just don't have the time for them. Because, you know, when you're off work, you have to do laundry and go grocery shopping and put gas in your fucking car. So that's the main issue. Until YouTube becomes enough money comes in for it to be a job, I'm never going to be able to regularly put out content to the detriment of this channel. I think this channel would have a lot more subscribers, but yeah, you got to pay your bills, and YouTube doesn't pay the bills. Even though I enjoy this a lot, I love doing it. It's just, yeah, I can't do it the way I'd like to. But it has nothing to do with you guys. You guys are great, and I would love to do that. And I would, yeah, I mean, if I could just get more regular editing done by Terrible Lizard, but it's just that you have to write the videos and record them over and over again. It's just all that stuff takes time, man. It takes a long time. It takes like a dozen hours just to kind of work on something, you know. But I will get back in a groove. You know, I always take little hiatuses. I always take a few weeks off. Then next thing you know, I upload 5 videos in a row. You know, so look ready the next couple weeks here, the rest of this month. you're going to get like a few videos coming out. I have some videos coming out. There's going to be another Please Rewind Live. Yeah, you can call me whatever you want. And I'm going to and I'm going to have more content coming out here soon to make more videos. So don't worry, there's more coming. I know I haven't uploaded much the last couple weeks. I'm hoping my Christopher Nolan video held you guys over. I think it was a pretty good. I actually think that's one of the best videos I've ever made. I know it was kind of serious and my delivery was a little monotone, but it was more of that kind of video. I think that's one of the best essay videos I've done. And I would like to do more videos like that with more quality. I would like to have that more quality over quantity, that I don't upload a lot, but when I do upload a video, it's really fucking thought out and good and makes points. If you're leaving soon, would you go to the World Class Bullshitter stream and convince them to let them into the stream? What? To let me into the stream? I mean, I do eventually just want to do a podcast of Blood Money. The problem is Blood Money's so fucking inconsistent. I try to call Blood Money to do a fucking podcast and do this stuff, and he won't do it. Well, I appreciate you being here since 7,000. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. You know, the big reason that happened with the channel is that a lot of people didn't hit the bell, so they don't get notifications. Like, out of my 16,000 subscribers, I don't think even half of them know. I get it all the time. People are like, dude, I didn't even know you still made videos. I watched you like 3 years ago. There's people that I used to know really well on my channel that don't watch my stuff anymore, and I thought maybe they just lost interest. Then I see them sometimes. They're like, dude, I'll show up on some chat in another live stream somewhere, and someone will be like, wait, you're still around? So it's just people don't know. They don't see the notifications for the videos. That's all it is. And I don't have enough subs for the algorithm to pick up new people. Well, a lot of the people who subscribed in the past, they didn't know about the bell thing. I didn't even know about the bell thing for a long time. So that's what a lot of it is. It's just a lot of my subscribers aren't aware of the new content. And that's all. It's not because, you know, they don't like it. Please Rewind doesn't want to be a YouTuber, but this is the consequence of not being a I mean, I would like to be a YouTuber. You just can't be a YouTuber if you don't make money at it, Alex. I tried to be a YouTuber. I mean, I uploaded regular videos for like a year and a half. I got subs, but I never made enough money, man. I mean, I only ever made like a few $1,000s. I don't know about you, but I can't live off that. I can't live off a few $1,000s. I mean, I would not be able to eat. So I have to work a job. I mean, a lot, dude. You'd have to have like 50, 60,000 subs, I think, to just make an okay living and get a lot of super chat and Patreon and ad revenue. I mean, a lot. You guys are going to remember the adpocalypse happened. Most people I know that are successful YouTubers that I know that are friends of mine and stuff, they've been doing it for years before they made any money off of it or did well. I mean, for like years and years. It's not, I mean, if it was easy to make money and make a living off YouTube, everybody would be doing it. If it was easy to be successful on YouTube, everyone would do it. The reason there's not a lot of people who make a living off YouTube is that it's not easy to get an audience like that. You know, yeah, it's either I live with no money and no food and no power, and I can't afford my car, and I make YouTube videos when I can't afford an electric bill, or I live my life and try to make YouTube videos on the side. Because the only reason I want to do this is I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to make movies. I wanted to be a writer and a filmmaker and tell stories. That's the only reason I ever did any of this. And the YouTube was just an extension of doing that, was trying to be an artist, was trying to tell my stories and write videos and talk about things I had interest in, because I didn't always have time to go make movies or write with, and so I used YouTube, and then I found a little bit of success with it. That's all it ever was. And that's what it still is. I'm still just here talking about the box office because I want to. I'm still here just bullshitting about movies with you guys, with my friends, doing what I want to do. That's all it really is. You know? Because if you go to film school, man, that doesn't mean you're going to become a filmmaker. I've had a lot of friends go to film school and it leads to nothing. I just made movies. That was my film schools. I bought equipment and made movies with my friends. People say it's good for networking, but that's really not true. I think Cordry can have my back on this because he's made independent films too. People always tell you that film school gives you good network. It really doesn't. That's not true either. Most people who make it in the industry, if you go look up their background, like Joss Whedon, his family worked in the industry years before that. J.J. Abrams, his family worked in the... Even Paul Thomas Anderson, his father worked in television. Robert Downey Jr. comes from filmmaking. Father, his parents were... I mean, if you actually look at most people that become famous... George Clooney, his aunt, was a famous singer. They come from a bloodline where somebody already was successful, either in their family or they had a father that was in the industry. Even Howard Stern's father, he worked in radio. That's a lot of the time. You kind of come up, like if your father is a carpenter and you become a carpenter, you kind of get connections through your father. And that's what happens with people a lot of the time that end up in the film industry. And I'm not saying this is true for everyone, but a lot of the people end up becoming filmmakers. They become filmmakers because they grew up with some kind of connection to the industry and they got involved with it and learned it, and made connections that way. Yeah, but you didn't become like a super successful filmmaker, Cordery. I'm not knocking you, but you're not like a famous... I mean, you made more off, like, you're making more off YouTube, right? I mean, you're not like a... You're not getting paid like $100,000 to direct movies, unless I'm wrong, but as far as I know, that's not... You're not in Hollywood right now making movies or like working at a studio or something. Unless you are, and I don't know, but as far as I know, you're not. You're just a guy like making independent movies with other people, you know. Which, you know, you can do, and you can make good independent movies and put them in film festivals and get them distributed. But to be like a successful, working, known Hollywood filmmaker, yeah, hopefully that goes well. But I don't agree with this whole networking thing. I don't think that's necessarily true. Because if that was true, everybody who went to film school would be network. I mean, that doesn't mean you can't become like a production assistant or work as an editor on, or work as like a AD. I mean, you could get a job in the industry, kind of. Well, they all went to film school back when it was different. You know, they were the film brats and all that. It was kind of a different time. Like, you kind of had to go to film school then because that was the only place you could get access to a lot of the equipment and learn a lot of the things about movies, was by going to film school. You don't need that stuff anymore. You don't need to go to a film school to get a camera with lenses. You can buy one or rent one. You don't need to go to a film school to learn how to edit because you can download an editor and use it, and it's the same editor they're using for a Hollywood movie. You get what I mean? Like, all this stuff, you used to have to go to film school to get the equipment and to learn how to use the equipment. That's not true anymore. So that's why a lot of the new generation, like Spike Jonze, Tarantino, Christopher Nolan, they didn't go to film school. Because you didn't need to go to film school to make movies. You could just make... independent cinema kind of changed everything. That wasn't really the case back in that era. Guys like Lucas, Spielberg, Scorsese, and Coppola and all them, they learned because that was... I mean, if you wanted to get work with fucking film cameras and shit, you had to work in some kind of capacity like that. I'm not being like negative film school though. You can go to film school if you want. I don't fucking know. I just don't think you need to. You could... everything you're going to learn in a film school, you can learn on your own. And that's a fact. You can read books that they would teach you in film school. You can study the films that they would show you in film school. You can listen to DVD commentary tracks that teach things about. You can read essays. You can do all of that. So I don't know what a film school would teach you that you couldn't teach yourself if you were intelligent enough. But that doesn't mean you couldn't go to film school and have fun. I mean, hey man, you want to go to college and get laid and all that and party and have a good time, more power to you. I mean, have fun. If you can afford it, man, if you got like fuck off money to go to film school, that's fine. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Cordry. I don't think Hollywood's really part of it anyway. I think I don't think you need Hollywood to be successful anymore. I think platforms like YouTube show that there's new outlets. I would say the future of art isn't making narrative film for theatrical release through Hollywood. I think it's I think it's going to be stuff like Full Force by iDubbbz, how he makes this documentary. I think it's going to be like Joji using YouTube as Filthy Frank and then becoming a musician and then uploading his videos onto YouTube. I think that's more the future of content is stuff like that, like making stuff or like Netflix things being like 10 episodes and stuff like that. I think that's the new way of telling stories. Yeah, I don't get this. How do you know which books to read? You just Google that, man. I mean, like, I don't know. I don't think this stuff's that hard. I didn't have a hard time with it. You get Sidney Lumet's Making Movies. You get David Mamet's book on making movies. You get that famous editing book, Blink of an Eye, by the guy who edited Apocalypse Now. You get Pauline Kael reviews. I mean, there's all sort. You just read books about movies that tell you about film. You read Hitchcock Truffaut. You just get these famous film books, and then you I mean, there's so much on the, you have the internet now. If you want to learn everything about, like, hey, what lens did they use to shoot this scene in this movie, then you just Google it and you can find out what lens they used and how they shot the sequence, or like how to edit. Editing is just kind of like practice. Editing's instinctual. Editing's not just like a technical know-how. Editing is a lot about feeling. A lot of the times a great edit comes from an instinct, and that instinct comes from wisdom, and that wisdom comes from your knowledge of film and storytelling. If you watch enough movies, you kind of start to understand rhythms. The same way with music. You can kind of get, you understand rhythm, tempo. That's how editing kind of is. You kind of you understand the flow of things, that, oh, this naturally kind of feels right to cut here, to show this, to convey this. These are things the thing I would learn, if you're trying to really learn how to be a filmmaker, get a camera and go out with your friends and film stuff. A lot of us who want to end up becoming filmmakers, we were making stuff when we were little kids. I used to make stuff with my friends when I was a little kid with a video camera with the tape in it. And then we eventually moved to a digital camera when I was a teenager. And we used to have to edit it on a VCR or on old DVD editors on a computer. And then they started to come out with free editing software. It was affordable. Then DSLRs came out and other cameras that you could attach lenses to. So then you could start using lenses. And then digital made shooting at night a lot easier. And it made it a lot easier where you didn't have to do as much lighting as you would with the film camera. And it didn't cost as much money. And you just go out and you start to learn blocking and camera movement and editing. You just start to kind of learn those things like anything else. You just practice it, and then it becomes, like, let's say you're trying to learn how to cook. You would get a recipe, and you would do a recipe the first time, and maybe it would be a little sloppy, but the more you make the recipe, let's say you do it 100 times, the 101st time that you're going to make that meal, you don't need to look at the recipe anymore because you've made it enough. You know how to do it. You know how to julienne your peppers. You know how long you need to cook the thing for the certain heat and the texture that it needs to be, and when to cool a certain thing. You start to learn that. You learn the flavor. You know how much salt you need to put on it. Making a movie is not that different. You just start to that's what Sam Raimi did when he made Evil Dead. They just went out and started making a movie, and at some point they got good at it because they figured it out. And it's going to be different for everybody. But the one thing that you have that nobody can take from you is your stories. The stories that you're able to tell, your perspective on life, your uniqueness on life. And maybe you're not meant to tell it through a camera. Maybe you're meant to tell it in an audible way. Maybe you're meant to tell it in a literary way. Maybe you're meant to tell it in an animated visual way. But you have a story, you have a point of view, and nobody can take it away from you. And that's what makes you unique, and that's what you can do. You don't, I don't know. I don't think film school and networking is what it's cut out to be, because I know a lot of people that went to film school that were really talented, and they're doing some job now that has nothing to do with that. And I think the best thing to do is if you want to be an artist, it's not just some job you go get, you just be an artist. You don't need a fucking degree to be a goddamn artist. You don't need somebody to validate it with a paycheck. Just make something and you're an artist. And if somebody thinks it's good or bad, whatever, man, like it's just, you still made it, you still created something. It doesn't fucking matter what people think. If you want to be an artist, then you got to get all that other shit out of your head and just do it and exist and live and do it and make your art. And it makes you, if that's what fulfills you, man, if that's what makes you happy, then just do it. Just start being a fucking artist. You don't need someone to fucking confirm it for you. Confirm it for yourself. Just because I have this job and I work it a lot of the time, and it doesn't mean that I'm not an artist. I still create things. I still write. I wrote 3 screenplays last year. I still craft things. I still work on things. Yeah, I made a lot of independent movies. I made 10 movies. Yeah. Couple of them did pretty well too, but you just don't. That doesn't. I mean, there's such a rare chance that you're going to make a movie that's going to be seen by millions of people and become a big thing. That's just so rare, man. It's just not something that happens. But you shouldn't be even getting into it for that reason anyway. The only reason you should want people to see it is to have people connect with what you're making. It's got nothing to fucking do with, the monetary gain or the success or pop or people being the center of attention. Go be a fucking actor if you want to be the center of attention. The reason you became an artist is because you want to make a mirror for the world to look at themselves and you to look at yourself and reflect back on yourself. And try to understand yourself better. It's because you feel deeper than other people. You respond to movies and music and things deeper than other people. It hits you deeper than other people. So you have to try to figure out how to articulate those deeper feelings that the average person doesn't have. A lot of people feel things, but they can't quite process what those feelings are. Your job as the artist is to explain to them what those feelings they're feeling are, to make them understand them, and to manipulate those feelings so that they can continue to have them. And you have taste. You have good taste, and you kind of know what a good movie is. You kind of know what a good song is. That's one thing I pride myself on, is I think I have good taste. And so when you're making something, you're trying to get to that point where it's good to what you think is good, because in your head, you know what good is. So try to make something that execute it close to what in your head you want it to be, because you know what good is. Like, hey, I want to make a movie like, let's just pick something. Like, I want to make a movie like Dead Ringers. Well, you saw Dead Ringers. You know why it's fucking good. You know why Cronenberg's good. Well, then get in your head, I want to make a movie like that, and then figure it out. And then keep working on it until it kind of gets close enough to what you wanted it to be. Make some compromises, but you're able to explain it to people that are more talented to you, that help you get there. You hire somebody that can do production design. You hire somebody that can help you with the makeup. You hire somebody that can help you with the camera. Or you get people to do it for you for free because they're your friends. I can't draw, no. And so it is. It's tenacity. It's stories that only you can tell in your way. It's having taste and trusting your instincts and taste. It's being pragmatic about the things that you want to do. You don't, if you want to make a movie and you don't have a bunch of money and stuff, then don't write a screenplay that requires $100 million. Write a screenplay that you can shoot for $5,000 and then go out and try to make that. Try that and see if you're any good at it. Because that's then you're an artist, man. If that's really what you want to do, just do it. Do it tomorrow. Just get up and go do it. Chris Stuckman and Jeremy Johns are both awful. That's my opinion. Those are my thoughts. The thing is, you know everything about everything aside from movies, books, literature, politics, philosophy, music, and storytelling. Yeah, but it's not. It's just everything. I would say read books. I would say read a lot of books. Is that'll help. That'll teach you how to tell stories and how to write and how to visualize stories and have a visual mind. I think most of the great filmmakers read a lot of books, watch a lot of movies. I mean, that's how I learned how to do a lot of stuff. I just watched a lot of fucking movies. I used to watch like 25 movies a week. You start to and rewatch movies, rewatch scenes from movies, especially with YouTube today. You can watch one scene over and over and over again. A lot of the times when I do one of my essays or an analysis on a movie, I watch one scene over and over and over again, and I try to figure out, why did they choose this cut this long? Why did this filmmaker decide for this shot to last 5 seconds before they cut to this shot that lasts 8 seconds? What was the reasoning for that in the edit? Was that something the filmmaker thought when he was making it, his blockings and his cuts? Because that's part of your job as a director, is to understand cuts and when the cuts are going to be in there and why are they there. And that starts to affect why I'm going to make my essay, and I start to base my editing off the rhythms of the editing in that scene that I watch over and over and over again. Why is this cue of music with this shot and what they're doing here making me feel this emotion? So you just do it over and over and over again, like repetition. That's all it is. It's a repetition. Repetition's very useful in that way. If you really like something in a movie, you just study it. It's just studying anything, man. If you want to get good at piano, you got to play all the time and study it. If you want to get good at movies, watch movies and study them. Pay attention. Watch them a lot and try to figure out how that was made that way. Scorsese used to watch Kubrick films with the sound off, so he could focus on the cuts, the very unique cutting style. He'd watch 2001 with no sound. I think that's great advice. I'd say, like, pick a movie you love and watch it with no sound. And try to look at how it comes across without hearing it. If you just have to watch it, if you can still follow the movie, and why that is. Because I know a lot of people that learn the technical side of making a movie. They learn how to use cameras and they learn how to shoot stuff, all that stuff that, and I've learned all that too. You learn about the circle of confusion, depth of field. You learn about what a lens can do with the difference between a long lens. You learn what deep focus is. You learn how you have to light. You learn all that stuff. And they make horrible fucking movies or short films. They make stuff that looks good, but they can't write a good story to save their fucking life, and they can't get good performances. And their movies are terrible despite, like, they know how to put a movie together technically, but they have nothing more than that because that's all they really know, because they're not interesting. And the only way you're going to become more interesting is by reading and studying. Like, Christopher Nolan was a history major, or like architecture or something like that. Yeah, I love that in every frame of painting, the Michael Bay thing with those cuts. And those cuts are very Michael Bay. It's fun. Before that video came out, I used to always think that Michael Bay, I would think of West, because I also love West Side Story, and I used to watch this. Yeah, you see a West Side Story, that's a great example, though. Michael Bay says in that New York Times interview that he loves that cut in West Side Story, and you see that those shots he studied it. He studied West Side Story to kind of create his visual style. That's how you do it. You just have to watch stuff and figure it out. Listen to the Paul Thomas Anderson commentary on Boogie Nights, and he just steals everything. He's like, I got this shot from this movie. I got this shot from this movie. That's how you learn. Orson Welles has a great quote. He said that anyone can learn how to direct a movie in 2 days. He never directed a movie before, and he made Citizen Kane. His cinematographer allowed to do it. And he said, anyone who tells you otherwise is lying. He says this, and I love that, because I think it's very true. I think a lot. He said to understand, like, what a wide shot is, what a medium shot is. Not all the other technical stuff, not how to do all the sound, but that's what a cinematographer's job is a lot of time. But just the basics of making a movie. Orson Welles is like, well, you can learn that very quickly, and people tell you otherwise are lying. I think there's a lot of overestimating how hard it is to make movies or how to be a director. Or I think people try to act like it's harder than it is, and to make themselves seem superior or more intelligent. And I think people do that with music a lot of the time too. So it makes people scared that they're never going to be talented enough or good enough to make something. They're like, oh, I could never learn how to do a shot like that. But that's really not true. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's not as impossible as you might think it is. You can learn a lot of the basics if you work at it. All of them, dude. Sam Mendes is a great director to listen to commentary tracks on. Listen to his commentary track for Road to Perdition. He'll explain every shot and how they did it. It's terrific. He even does that with Skyfall and American Beauty. I think I'm trying to think. There's some other really really good. I mean, there's just a lot of commentaries I listen to. I listen to for like entertainment value because they're funny. But yes, Steven Soderbergh, his commentaries. There's a lot. Just find Dazed and Confused, Richard Linklater. You know, he's not like a technically great director. It's not like he has the most brilliant cinematography and editing. But Dazed and Confused is a great fucking movie, and you know why? Because that was real. All that shit was based off real stuff that happened to him. He grew up there. He knew where to shoot at. He knew what kind of people to cast. He knew the language. I mean, everything the Coen brothers do comes from literature or art or something they're into. It's just being a nerd. They're just nerds for things. They're geeks about things. Then they learn from those things and then put them into their art. That's all it is. So you just have to find the things that you're really obsessed with and try to translate that into what you're trying to do, man. You just Google, just dude, there's a computer with this website called Google, and you Google great DVD commentaries. That's what I'm trying to tell you. It's like 30 years ago, you wouldn't be able to do that. So I get like, oh, maybe I should go to film school. You don't have to do that anymore. You can just like search stuff and find it. Like if you want to know how they made some movie, you're like, how'd they get that shot? You can find out how they did that shot in that movie. That before you would have to like go research, you'd have to go to a library, you'd have to like hunt down books, you'd have to like hope to find an interview in a magazine or a newspaper. It's not that way anymore, man. You can just find this shit out. Uh so I don't know, like even me talking to you about these movies and stuff like that, like there's just so much stuff out there like this now. I think there's been kind of this disillusionment with movies and Hollywood and all that because of that. Because I think the wizard behind the curtain has been unveiled a little bit in recent years. That's not true that they only say you need to be more specific with what you're searching for. Many tell me I need a real dojo to do martial arts. Stephen Chow learned from books and videos. It's totally true. Yeah, when I got into working out, I didn't go to a gym. I just bought the equipment. I watched videos on how to do it, and I figured it out. I mean, dude, that's anything. It's the person. It's not the training. Training is going to help you, but you're only going to get as far as you are as the person. Scorsese is not a great filmmaker. Coppola, George, any of those guys were not successful because somebody taught them. A lot of that came from them. Steven Spielberg is not Steven fucking Spielberg because of one person. It's because of the collective experience of his whole life that went into him that made him make those things. And yeah, the world has changed. It's a new world. Art isn't what we thought it was anymore, and you don't have to go through a studio or some kind of big corporation to get your stuff out there. You know, you can do it yourself today. It's a different world. You know, everyone's all obsessed with like reaching this point, and it's like you don't have to, man. It's like you're there. If all you ever wanted to do was just like make something and have people watch it or put it somewhere, you can do that now. I mean, that's what's fucking cool. But I think a lot of people want to be famous and they want the money. I think that's what they want. I think they don't actually want to make stuff. I think they want the fame and the accolades and the money. And I think that's what they're chasing, is that validation. And I think a lot of e-celebs and YouTubers are that way. I think they're narcissists. I don't think they're actually just making the content because they wanted to make content. Well, of course, I agree. For medicine, yes. Or anything, engineering, astrophysics. I mean, all of that stuff, I would say you'd have to go to school. But that's really advanced, complicated stuff. Movies aren't like, I mean, there's a lot of science to making a movie, but goddamn, it's not like that. It's not doing a spinal surgery. I mean, it's just not. And anyone who tells you it is a fucking insane person. It's really not like that. I don't know, because they're lame. They're what I'm talking about. Chris Stuckman just wants to be famous. He just wants validation. He doesn't care about talking about movies or getting art. That's why he does his little 4-minute reviews and uploads them, because he knows that'll get hits. Ralph the Movie Maker just wants to be this film. He wants to be famous. He's obsessed with Scorsese. I mean, I don't know why they don't talk about this stuff. It's like they don't want to be. It feels like a lot of these movie channels don't want to be raw or challenge themselves or be willing to say stupid things or controversial things. They want to stay under the light of like, Paul Thomas Anderson's great, Scorsese's great, this is great, 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 you know? And then when they try to say controversial things because they don't practice at doing it enough, they fuck up because they didn't teach themselves how to be challenging. Which is why Ralph's Joker video is so bad, because he doesn't know how to make a video like that. And a lot of them got successful off the content of other things. Like, really, your movie sucks nitpicking or breaking down these horrible movies. The content is the bad movie. It's not his commentary for it. Ralph the Movie Maker, when he talks about those horrible Bigfoot shows and ghost shows, it's not necessarily him that makes it brilliant. It's that those shows are so horrible, he's just commenting on it. This is a lot of the key to a successful YouTuber, is you find something that's worth getting a lot of views on. It's not necessarily you making the views happen. It's the subject that you're covering brings in the views, and you get to capitalize on it. That's the opportunity that you get to ride. That's the wave you get to ride, and having the instinct to know what those things are. But then when you actually get to do something on your own, you just got to sit around on a podcast and talk and be interesting and have things to say, it turns out you're not that fucking interesting without that thing. Which is why Red Letter Media is so great, because Mike, Jay, and Rich are interesting. They are funny. They do have opinions. They have made movies. They are upfront and transparent about their failures, and we've seen them evolve over the years. And they kind of just have their own thing. They wanted to be filmmakers, and James Rolfe's the same way. All these guys wanted to be filmmakers, and at some point they had to accept that wasn't really going to happen, and that they just had to be YouTubers. But they came from it in a different way. They just got into it because they wanted to tell stories and stuff like that, make movies, and they found this other medium, and then they blew up on that medium. And then indirectly became celebrities. But that wasn't why they really got into it. And they're more mature because of that. Where I think a lot of those people you're asking me about why they don't talk about certain things is just because they come from a world where it's just YouTube to them. It's just internet. It's just digital. It's just criticism from that point of view. I think they lack perspective, especially when you're successful from a young age. That's all you're going to know. You're not going to know anything else. You know, you're just going to know things from that point of view of being a YouTuber. And and a lot of people just don't like to go back and watch. I mean, a lot of those guys are current. They're into what's happening now in movies, and I get that, and they don't really want to go back to the past too much, which I think makes sense. I think there's a good argument to be made if you really want to be truly an innovator or successful or find an audience. It's staying current with young people, you know? And most young people, I think, probably don't want to hear you talk about a movie like Come and See or Fanny and Alexander or something like that, you know, or The Verdict. I don't think they want it. They want you to talk about what's going on now, because that's what they're living through is right now. I love Catch Me If You Can. I think that scene with the wallet, where Leo fakes him out the wallet, the way that's shot down, I think that's one of Spielberg's best scenes. And the way he blocks that sequence is terrific. How long has this been going? Oh, Jesus, 2.5 hours. This is just like the old box office addicts. Thank you, Will. I appreciate that. And I think the audience I have attracted shows their passion as well. And that's why I like what we have. You know, it's like a good relationship. You guys could be this fantasy that I make up of an audience that I wouldn't have any personal connection to, because there would be so many, would be so distant. But this is better than that. It's real. It's like a real friendship, you know? All right, guys. My only regret is no Bathory here. That just feels awful. So I'm gonna dedicate this 100th episode to Bathory, who was there from like the early days and stuck with me, and I think was a big part of this show, to be honest. So I'm dedicating this to Bathory and my friend Blood Money, and to all of you rewinders throughout the years now. Jesus Christ, I'm getting older. It's like Landslide becomes sadder and sadder every fucking year. But you guys, yeah, go read Hitchcock Truffaut, dude. Everything you need to know about fucking movies is in that goddamn book. Did Truffaut even make 14 movies? Thanks, man. But yeah, you guys are all great. As always, if you've stuck around for 100 fucking episodes of Box Office Addict, you're definitely a box office addict. I can't believe we ever made it here. I never thought this would make it this far. To do 100 episodes of like a podcast or a show, and hey, some of the Box Office Addicts have like 400,000 views. The Jumanji one has 400,000 views. The Medea, whatever. But like, if you guys think that no one's ever watched the show and it's our dirty little secret, it has been out there. Box Office Addict has brought in over 1 million views. I'd like to point out. I did the total. There's been over 1 million views collectively of the Box Office Addicts, or around there. It's probably no, it would be 1 million. So over 1 million people have clicked on a Box Office Addict episode over the last couple years. So you guys have been part of that. You made it happen. And shit, man. Yeah, it doesn't get much better than that. My job's rough sometimes. My life's not always perfect, but I'm really proud of Box Office Addict, what it became as a live stream. And that's what's great about it. I'm just really proud of it. I'm really proud of what it's been and what we did to get here. I think this is the best continuous content that's ever been on this channel. And I'm proud of it. And I think years from now, even if I stop doing this, I hope that this show stays on and people will go back and watch it and listen to it. All the different Box Office Addicts. And I think there's so many great bits and little things. No, it's not the last BOA. I think there's so many bits and little things that I did. Like I found Terrible Lizard through this show. I met Bathory through this show. I met Madcap, Will, Dragon, all you guys. Blood Money I met through this show. He's become one of my best friends. I would have never met him if it wasn't for this, and we've become really good friends. Cordry was watching Box Office Addict, all of you guys is because of this show, all because I have this weird obsessive compulsive thing with box office numbers. And so it's been really wonderful, and that's why I want to do this as a live stream, just to thank all of you guys and talk to you guys and let you know that I miss all you guys and I still care about you and I'm not going anywhere. And I'm just in my life, about 30 years of life. This is one of the most things I'm most proud of is this show and what we've done with it. That it's not just covered the box office, that it's covered so much about so many things. We've talked about relationships on here. We've talked about mental illness. We've talked about sexuality and friendship and politics. And just about every topic that you could think of has been discussed on this fucking show. So, it's not really being box office addicts. I think it's about just being addicts of each other's company, that we all just like talking to each other. It's about talking. It's about connection, Well, you guys have taught me as much as I've taught you. I could say that. You could totally cosplay as Produce Rewind. I would love that. I've thought about cosplaying as some Comic Cons as Please Rewind. Although I wonder if anybody would fucking know. Like, wait, who the fuck is that? I'm sitting there at a table with my fucking... But before we go, I think we need to spend some time on our sponsor, Blue Apron. Blue Apron, you can get Blue Apron at a very good price. It only costs $695 a minute, folks. All right? You pay $695 a minute. You get the Blue Apron sent. The food's already there. They tell you how to make the food. You make the food. It's really good. Makes you healthy. I know a lot about health. My wife's a doctor. We talk about health all the time. It's great. You can get kosher food if you're Jewish, like me. Blue Apron, folks. It's worth it. It's affordable. It's delicious. It's the best thing on the market. Why do you need to go out to dinner when you have Blue Apron? All right, okay. And that's about it. The video was brought to you by this video was brought to you by Skillshare. I hate that's a new thing on YouTube is all these sponsored. This video sponsored by these fucking headphones that you need to buy for $65. This video sponsored by this fucking website that I started with my fucking friends. Ben Shapiro's wife is a doctor. It was a Ben Shapiro impression. His wife's a doctor. They get Blue Apron. That's an old joke on this channel. I was bringing back. I haven't done that in like 50 episodes. There hasn't been a Ben Shapiro cameo in a while. Maybe Quentin Tarantino will show back up here too. Yeah. Yeah, Ben Shapiro. I saw Parasite. It's horrible. Terrible. Terrible propaganda. Horrible movie about class. It's saying that rich people are bad. All right? The rich family's paying these people pretty well. They take them in. They're good people. And these poor people, they live them. They mooch off them. They stab them at the end. It's horrible. All right? Poor people are disgusting. All right? It's your fault that you're poor. Oh, yeah. I've seen Ben Shapiro's sister. I know what you mean. Those pictures of my sister are fake. All right? That isn't her. All right? Don't look at those pictures of my sister. That's not right. Don't go see Parasite. 1917 should have won Best Picture. It's terrific. Really good. Terrific World War I movie. Wonderful. Yeah, Raycon. No, what's with the fucking Raycon headphones, man? I don't know. I mean, I don't even know if Ben Shapiro saw Parasite. I'm just guessing that's what he would say. Yeah, fuck it, guys. I'm not sponsored. Fuck it, Raycon. Get Raycons. They must be good. Everyone else fucking has them. I don't know. This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Aye. Alright, guys. Well, that's it. Hold on. I'll give you guys a little present. We'll play some Sharkfoot music. We'll go with a classic here. This is like a classic box office Addict, right? That's the idea. That's not the ending of Parasite. You know, we're having all this positive love and energy in the stream, and you're like bringing it down. Everyone here is like all lovey-dovey, and you're like ruining this moment for me and these people. Like upsetting. This is like a big deal. 100 episodes or 2 years. All right. Let's find some classic Sharkfoot, shall we? I gotta do a fucking thing with Sharkfoot. I feel bad not having Sharkfoot involved. Alright, see you guys.